Chapter 1-1, Luck Stealing System, Solar Authority. Sigh. On the first day of the official school term, the homeroom teacher stood in front of the blackboard, giving a tedious explanation of the lesson plan. Below, Nanamiya Hiro was somewhat absent-minded. Konako-chan is already in her first year of high school, so there probably isn't much time left before the story begins. Yet, I'm still just an ordinary person with a very good memory now. At most, I have a little money. Looking at the short, white-haired figure a few dozen centimeters in front of him, Hiro sighed inwardly. In the lower right corner of his vision, there was a semi-transparent, slender energy bar that had reached about 50%. And this was all the progress he had made since transmigrating to this world. Due to his inexplicably acquired absolute memory, and almost photographic recall ability, he was very clear about the timeline of the story in his memory. It was shortly after Konako entered high school and the original protagonist entered his second year. Since you threw me into such a dangerous world, why give me such a useless golden finger? Or have my actions all along been wrong? Do I need to fight and kill to increase the progress of this energy bar? Just as he was staring blankly at his golden finger, the girl in front of him named Konako silently turned her head. It's only the first day of school, could you please stop staring at me? The white-haired girl frowned slightly as she looked at him. Oh, sorry, I was thinking about something else and spaced out. After muttering an apology, Hiro turned his gaze to the right. His eyes met those of a girl with light brown hair. The girl offered a kind yet polite smile, nodded at him, and then turned her gaze back to the blackboard above. Every movement she made displayed the elite education of a wealthy family to Hiro. His gaze swept across Asuna's profile, and Hiro silently looked towards the empty schoolyard on his left. A useless golden finger, an absolute memory that can't let me crush Phoenix, obliterate Cockabile, the Vala Lucifer, Cao, etc. So what can I do now? Watch Hyudu Issei show his might. A transmigrator who has ended up like me is probably one of a kind, right? But in reality, he was also very helpless about how things had developed. If he had known about Kua Academy and Devils a few years earlier, maybe he could have used the large sum of money and connections he earned from plagiarism to find some leads on magic, spells, and the church. Although it was unlikely he would soar to the heavens, he wouldn't have ended up in such a helpless situation. However, until the middle of last month, on the last day of his third year of middle school, before the end of the third semester, just before spring break, his homeroom teacher announced, this school will soon close and merge with Kua Academy in the same town. He hadn't heard even the slightest bit of news. This small town was Saitama Prefecture, the hometown of the original protagonist Kirigaya Kazuto, not Kua town. How could Kua Academy suddenly appear? Ding! System energy loading progress reached 50%, main system function activated. Hello host, the luck stealing system is at your service. Just at this moment, such a voice appeared in Hiro's mind. Instantly, his entire spirit was invigorated. Luck stealing system? Although it came a bit late, it's still much better than nothing. His gaze subtly swept forward. Even Konako, whose true form was a devil, didn't seem to have heard this voice, which quietly relieved him. System, what functions do you have? Suppressing the excitement in his heart, Hiro tried his best to remain calm and asked inwardly. 1. It can help the host steal the luck of original characters. Upon completion of the theft, the host will receive random feedback such as items, abilities, bloodlines, etc., and the system will be recharged. Above characters with stealing value, a number from 1 to 10 will appear according to the amount of luck. The host only needs to inflict a fatal injury on them or stay near them for a period of time, and the system will be able to complete the luck theft. The staying time and distance depend on the difference in strength between the host and the target. Only one target is allowed at a time. Completing designated tasks can significantly shorten the required time. 2. After the energy bar reaches 100%, the host can consume 50% of the system energy to travel to other worlds and steal the luck of characters in those worlds. The host needs to wait 1 week to return to this world and does not need to consume system energy again. The relative time flow is fixed at 24 hours. Stealing other people's luck to strengthen oneself, and being able to travel between worlds, and the time flow is still 24 hours, which is a whole day. After receiving this information, Hiro faced the empty schoolyard, narrowed his eyes slightly, and felt very satisfied in his heart. However, when he quickly scanned the classroom in front and to his right, he couldn't help but frown. How could Asuna, the female lead, have the same level of luck as Konako? Whether it was Asuna on his right or Konako in front, the number floating above their heads was 3, a value that wasn't high or low. Oh, right, what will happen to those whose luck I steal? Will they become very unlucky? Thinking about the two beautiful female classmates around him, Hiro asked this in his heart. He would feel uneasy or rather, unwilling if his actions caused Asuna and Konako to fall into a final destination type of scenario. No, the luck stolen by the system is one of the future causes and effects that no existence can perceive and will not cause any negative impact on the target. Except for very few special circumstances. Phew, that's good. Hiro breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. As for the special circumstances mentioned by the system, since it already had the prefix very few, the probability of it happening was definitely not high. Then, system, do you have any newbie gift packs or something to give me for self-defense? After a brief pause, the emotionless mechanical voice of the system sounded, the newbie gift pack has been issued, please check it yourself, host. It didn't even open automatically, surprisingly humane. Glancing at the item bar that had just appeared on the system panel and the small package icon within it, Hiro muttered inwardly. The things I get after opening the newbie gift pack shouldn't be used automatically, right? Just in case, he confirmed with the system again before trying to open the package. Certainly. The system's mechanical voice sounded. Then help me open it. About to open the newbie gift pack, are you sure? Yes. The small package icon in the item bar suddenly exploded into a ball of white light, and then, after a second or two, ding. Congratulations host for obtaining the Solar Authority, every 250 power stones equals 1 bonus chapter 2 3rd tier luck, double yoke. Ding. Congratulations host for obtaining the Solar Authority, Leo. Hiro. Staring directly at the blue sky and white clouds outside the window, he was stunned for a few seconds before gradually reacting, revealing an indescribably strange expression. Is the weight of this newbie gift pack a bit too much? Could it be a special compensation because it was over 10 years late? Able to acquire abilities corresponding to the inheritance of the zodiac and equatorial star beasts in hand. Once resisted Kuro Usagi's simulated divinity, Brahmastra replica. Originally the Leo authority held by the sun-dwelling lion of no name, later belonged to Kalaji of the Mu Alliance Ouroboros. Can harbor within oneself the Avatara's fourth transformation, the lion god beast Narasimha, which repels all weapons in the world, regardless of whether they are divine or celestial creations. Although the Leo Solar Authority did not display any offensive capabilities in the original novel, and even the ability to summon star beasts was only used by the White Night King, Cross, among the star spirits, this was not a crucial issue for the currently penniless hero. At the very least, if he equipped this Solar Authority, he would already be invincible when facing targets like Cao, Siegfried, Jean, and Kiba Ueto, who heavily relied on weapons. Of course, he also wouldn't be able to win. With a slight thought, he clicked on the small sun depicting a lion in the system item bar and pressed the use button. The small sun disappeared from the item bar, and he himself. Forget about a surge of warmth, a boost of spirit, or a feeling of abundant power, he didn't even notice the slightest bit of abnormality, as if everything that had just happened was a daydream. Only the item bar that had just appeared on the system panel and was still empty seemed to silently tell him something. That's it. Hiro lowered his head, clenched and unclenched his right palm a couple of times, and couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth slightly. Such a powerful thing like the Solar Authority just ended so anticlimactically. Dong dong, that question, the one over there, Nanamiya Hiro, right? Stand up and answer. At this moment, the homeroom teacher Kyudo stopped his tedious explanation, tapped the blackboard with the chalk in his right hand, and asked the dazed Hiro. Standing up, Hiro looked at the question pointed to by the teacher's right hand. After thinking for a couple of seconds, he fluently answered, put X and Y. More than 10 seconds later, hearing the standard answer spoken by Hiro, the old face of the teacher Kyudo couldn't help but look a little awkward. From the very beginning of the class, this kid had been absent-minded, hardly looking at the blackboard, definitely not listening to my lecture. How did he answer this question that was beyond the curriculum? Uncomfortable as he was, since the student had already answered his question, as a qualified, even excellent, homeroom teacher and educator, Kyudo naturally wouldn't continue to make things difficult for him. As long as the grades were fine and the attendance days were sufficient, what problem was there even if one didn't listen or spaced out in class? In this regard, Kyudo was no different from ordinary educators. Very good, correct answer. Looking at Hiro, who appeared calm and composed, the homeroom teacher Kyudo waved his left hand, signaling him to sit down. Hey, Nanamiya-kun, you weren't listening in class just now, were you? How did you know the correct way to solve that problem? Just as Hiro sat down, a soft inquiry came from beside him. Perhaps others weren't aware of the fact that the question just now was beyond the curriculum, but Yuaki Asuna, as an elite who had already completed 3 years of high school courses under her mother's strict demands, was very clear about it. It was precisely because of this that she was curious about Hiro's calm demeanor, even violating her usual elite principles by zoning out in class. Hearing the question from beside him, Hiro turned his head, and Asuna's delicate face, carrying a hint of curiosity, immediately entered his sight. Maybe it was too simple. Tilting his head to think for a moment, Hiro chuckled softly and replied in a low voice, I don't have any special talents. I just have a good memory. Since I had already read through the textbook before class, I didn't find that question difficult at all. I see. Asuna nodded, giving him a polite smile. Thank you for the explanation, Nanamiya-kun. Ending his conversation with the original Asuna, Hiro turned his gaze to the front, to the light grey number located more than 20 centimeters above Konako's head. So, system, according to the current distance, I should be able to extract Konako's luck, right? How do I start? Avoiding looking at Konako's back, Hiro stared at the lead grey 3 and asked inwardly. Focus your gaze on the luck value and silently say steal. If the distance is insufficient, there will be no reaction. Silently saying it. What a convenient operation. Focusing his gaze, Hiro silently muttered, steal. The moment this thought arose, the system's voice rang in his mind. Ding. The time required for this extraction is 45 minutes. Do you wish to begin? 45 minutes, the duration of an entire class period, that's so long? Frowning slightly, he didn't think too much about it. Begin. Ding. Third tier luck extraction initiated, remaining time, 44 minutes and 59 seconds. When the host leaves the maximum allowable distance, the extraction countdown will pause and automatically resume upon re-entry. Current task, after the host's palm stays above Konako's head for 3 seconds, the remaining time will be reduced by 40 minutes. 3 seconds and 40 minutes. Hearing the system's task requirement, Hiro couldn't help but glance at the cluster of white short hair, then silently shifted his gaze away. Can't afford to provoke her, can't afford to provoke her. If he really did that, even if Konako wouldn't do anything to him in class, and after school, she would very forcefully drag him somewhere and then, scold him? Teach him a lesson? Warn him? In any case, it wouldn't be anything good. Moreover, it was only 45 minutes, it wasn't like he couldn't wait. Why deliberately court death? After seeing off the homeroom teacher Kyudo, Hiro waited a few more minutes and welcomed a world history teacher with cherry blossom colored hair. Ding! Third tier luck extraction completed. Congratulations host for obtaining improved physical fitness and Navy 6 styles, finger gun. Every 250 power stones equals 1 bonus chapter 3 to 3, stealing luck again, intrinsic time control improved physical fitness and finger gun? Only one of the Navy 6 styles, isn't that a bit stingy? Raising an eyebrow, Hiro didn't hesitate at all and directly used the 2 newly appeared items in the system item bar. Then, unnoticed by anyone, he slightly extended his left hand and clenched it a few times in the air. Just like the feedback one gets when exerting force compared to not exerting force, with just this clenching, he could clearly feel that his grip strength had increased several times compared to before. As for other aspects such as nerve reflexes, stamina, endurance, and recovery, he couldn't determine if they had improved for the time being due to the inappropriate setting. However, judging from the system's description of physical fitness rather than just strength, all aspects should have improved. Hiro, pay attention to the lecture. The teacher with cherry blossom-colored hair, Kirisuma Fuyo, glanced at him expressionlessly and said coldly. Yes. Hiro straightened his expression and hurriedly put on the appearance of a good student listening attentively. He accidentally forgot the persona of teacher Kirisuma Fuyo, a miscalculation. Seeing his performance, Kirisuma Fuyo then resumed teaching with a cold face. Taking advantage of the moment Kirisuma Fuyo turned around, Hiro's gaze swept over the top of Asuna's head on his right. Steal. Ding. The time required for this extraction is 15 minutes. Do you wish to begin? Begin. Perhaps it was because of the significant difference in strength between Konako, a lower-class devil, and Asuna, an ordinary human, that even the time required to steal their luck had a considerable gap. Third-tier luck extraction initiated, remaining time, 14 minutes and 59 seconds. Current task, say I love you to Asuna. The remaining time will be reduced by 13 minutes. Hiro. I refuse. Faced with this unexpectedly task, he skipped even the time for thinking and hesitation and decisively chose to refuse. 2 consecutive tasks like this, am I just unlucky? Or is this system poisonous? Fortunately, these tasks are optional and don't hinder my luck stealing, otherwise, maybe I wouldn't have become much stronger, but I myself would have already suffered social death. After refusing, he couldn't help but mutter inwardly, feeling a bit of relief. 15 minutes, only a third of the class period. Not long after, Hiro heard the system's notification sound, ding. Third tier luck extraction completed. Congratulations host for obtaining intrinsic time control, upper limit 5 times, 5 times, shouldn't that be a defective ability, like Kiritsuga's, which was mostly nerfed? After briefly recalling the memories in his mind, Hiro came to this conclusion. After all, Amiya Kiritsuga's magic crest only received 20% inheritance rights from his father with the Magus Association's permission, and this so-called 20% should still have a lot of impurities, such as being the least valuable part, or some trickery involved. Otherwise, Amiya Kiritsuga wouldn't be on the verge of death just by activating double speed, and only with Avalon's support could he barely activate 4 times the speed. In any case, Amiya Kiritsuga's father, Amiya Norikata, was a genius magus who was designated for sealing by the Magus Association even during the 4th generation's inheritance and had even found a method to reach the root. Physical fitness has been strengthened once, and there's also an accelerator like intrinsic time control. For offense, I have the Navy 6 Styles finger gun. I wonder if I can now exchange blows with a lower class devil. Thinking this, Hiro's gaze, which had been on the blackboard, slightly lowered, looking at the petite white-haired figure in front of him. At this moment, regarding the time-based ability he had just acquired, he suddenly realized a crucial issue. System, I don't have any magic power right now. When I use intrinsic time control, what will it consume? My stamina? Certainly. As expected, hopefully, it won't consume too much, otherwise, a good accelerator will be forcibly reduced to a trump card. As for the side effects of severe physical pain and dizziness, he didn't really care. First, the worlds are different. Without Gaia's and the counter-forces resistance and oppression, and without Solomon's magic foundation, the intrinsic time control itself might change. Moreover, the extent to which his body has been strengthened by the system is still unknown. Maybe it will directly ignore the side effect of inconsistent time flow inside and outside the body? Hiro, come to the office with me after class. Meeting the cold gaze from the front, Hiro's expression was slightly bewildered. It's only the first day of class, Nanamiya-kun, how about showing a little respect for the teacher? Beside him on the right, Asuna's somewhat helpless voice came. Every 250 power stones equals 1 bonus chapter 4-4, a green-haired, one-eyed ghoul? After school, Hiro didn't join a suitable club like the other classmates but headed straight for the school gate. Nanamiya-kun. However, to his surprise, Asuna, the only daughter of the Yuaki conglomerate, he wasn't yet clear about her sister, chose to walk home just like him, an ordinary person. Speaking of which, there seemed to be rumors online that Asuna was a hidden huge-boobed beauty. Standing in place, Hiro's gaze subtly swept across Asuna's chest, and he muttered inwardly. Isn't the Yuaki family a famous major conglomerate? Why does a young lady like you still walk home? Walking forward side by side, Hiro looked at Asuna on his right and asked somewhat puzzledly. A famous conglomerate, that's a bit of an exaggeration, isn't it? Hearing him say this, Asuna replied with a slightly unnatural expression. Originally, my mother also said she would have the driver pick me up from school, but for some reason, my father rarely rejected my mother's proposal and even had a big argument over this small matter. Perhaps thinking of something, Asuna's eyes dimmed slightly as she spoke of this. Mother agreed, father refused, and they even had a big argument over the small matter of driving to and from school. Was it necessary? Hearing Asuna's explanation, Hiro also felt somewhat puzzled. However, since the girl beside him had shown such an expression, he naturally wouldn't remain indifferent. Your uncle's considerations are definitely more profound than ours, Yuaki, don't overthink it. Looking at the girl's sad expression, Hiro comforted her softly. Yeah. Asuna nodded, and the expression on her face improved slightly. Before, I asked my father why he did this, arguing with my mother over such a small thing. As a result, my father's answer was just perfunctory things like you don't understand, you don't need to think so much, and this is for your own good. Not only that, but my father also rejected my mother's request for me to transfer schools, insisting that I attend this Kua Academy, even though it's just a very ordinary high school. My father's insistence is just inexplicable. Perhaps because she had no one to confide in before, after being comforted by Hiro, Asuna immediately spilled out a series of family. Meanwhile, Hiro listened to her pouring out her heart, his mind in thoughtful contemplation, deliberately having Asuna attend Kua Academy and not allowing the driver to pick her up and drop her off. This must be to allow her to interact more with her classmates, right? But if that's the case, why not just say so directly? Why be so vague and not tell Asuna the reason? Unless there's some hidden reason. Could it be that Yuaki Shaozu somehow learned about devils, myths, Gremory, Citri, and the like? Thinking of this terrifying guess, Hiro couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth slightly, countless retorts welling up from who knew where. Your family has its own difficulties too, Hiro said softly after listening to the girl's complaints, a hint of empathy on his face. Of course, his family situation was slightly different from the Yuaki family. Because the one facing difficulties now was only him, in every aspect. Judging from what Nanamiya-kun said, it seems your family also has some special circumstances. Asuna tilted her head slightly, a mischievous smile that didn't quite fit her young lady image gradually appearing on her face. Tell me about it, otherwise, it's too unfair if only I'm revealing my family situation. Well, it's not anything important anyway. It doesn't matter if I tell you. Let's just consider it a secret we've exchanged. Looking at the mischievous expression on the girl's face, Hiro smiled somewhat helplessly. Asuna nodded, looking at him with a hint of anticipation on her face. Watch the road, watch the road. Gently turning the girl's head forward with his right hand on the back of her head, Hiro began to speak unhurriedly. My mother became pregnant at 16, during her first year of high school, and gave birth to me. Because of this, my mother severed ties with her parents. She only has one younger sister, with whom she barely maintains contact. My father passed away due to some inexplicable reason before I was even born. When I was little, my mother not only had to take care of me but also had to work part-time to earn a living and pay rent. Working from dawn till dusk was the norm. This situation only improved when I was 3 years old, after my mother used her phone to send out the first draft of my novel. 5 years ago, my aunt's husband passed away unexpectedly, leaving her with an only daughter. After my mother found out, she brought me to live with my aunt's family. I'm 15 this year, and my 12-year-old cousin is already in middle school. She often pesters me to shower together. My mother and aunt are also very casual at home, completely unguarded, and don't consider my feelings at all. Speaking of this, Hiro thought of the occasional benefits his mother and aunt would unintentionally release, as well as his cousins, Kirigaya occasional raids, and rubbed his temples with a headache. It was this action that made him hear the munching sounds coming from the alleyway ahead, like a carnivore feeding. Nanamiya-kun, you've had it tough too, Asuna said, looking at him with some emotion, a hint of shared hardship in her tone. As for the commotion not far away, the ordinary human Asuna was completely unaware. As for Hiro, looking at the alleyway corner a few meters away, he frowned, an ominous premonition welling up in his heart. If it were the worldview of Sword Art Online, it would at most be some wild beast or stray dog that had wandered out. But in this inexplicable world, who knew what might appear? Even if a dead-eyed office worker whose hobby was heroism suddenly appeared in this place called Saitama Prefecture, Hiro felt he could accept it. Yuaki, we. Hiro reached out his right hand, intending to grab Asuna's wrist, but unexpectedly, the girl dodged it with an almost precognitive sidestep. No way, Nanamiya-kun and I only just met today, it's too early. A relaxed and pleasant smile on her face, the girl turned around, walking backward towards the alleyway ahead while looking at him. At this moment, Hiro could no longer hear the gnawing sound from before. Too early? Where did this girl's thoughts wander off to? Hiro muttered inwardly. However, since Asuna had already walked past the corner, it also meant that he had no time to consider. The expression on his face suddenly turned serious. Hiro took a step forward, and the serious him easily grabbed Asuna's wrist. Clap! His gaze casually swept across the alley, and his heart suddenly sank. Asuna, we're in big trouble. Next to the trash cans at the end of the alley, there were two strange figures covered in blood, each holding a human arm, looking up at the two of them. One had blonde hair, the other green hair. One had 2 red eyes, the other a single red eye. Ghouls. Noticing the two figures, Asuna couldn't help but gasp, covering her mouth with her hand. Every 250 power stones equals 1 bonus chapter 5-5, instant kill ghouls. The one-eyed owl ghouls. Hearing the exclamation beside him, Hiro thought to himself, as expected, and couldn't help but feel like the whole world knew what had become of it, except for him, who had been kept in the dark. Although Hiro knew he wasn't someone who paid much attention to current affairs, he wouldn't completely ignore trending topics on X and FB, and he would even glance at the advertisements pushed to his phone. Yet, even under these circumstances, he had never heard even the slightest bit of news related to ghouls. Feeling the trembling sensation from his palm, Hiro swung Asuna's wrist in his right hand towards the path they had come from and said in a deep voice, "Good that you know. Asuna, you run quickly. I'll hold them off here." But, biting her lower lip, a hint of hesitation flashed across Asuna's face. She didn't immediately obey Hiro's instructions. This old cliché happened, and she doesn't want to run? Does she want to become a pair of doomed lovebirds with me? Although I probably won't die anyway. Hurry up and call the police, and don't come back to be a burden. Glancing at the hesitation on Asuna's face, Hiro said coldly, trying to make her quickly recognize the situation. While Hiro and Asuna were talking, the two ghouls on the other side weren't idle either. "Two students, what bad luck. I'll go take care of them first, sir. You don't need to worry about it." The male ghoul with short yellow hair and a tiger-striped mask covering his face threw down the food in his hand, stood up, and walked towards Hiro and the girl. "The boy is yours to do with as you please. Bring the girl over here, and be careful not to hurt her," the green-haired, one-eyed ghoul said indifferently before lowering his head to continue eating. "Understood." The mask and limbs were covered in bright red liquid, and 4 snake-like kagun grew from his back. Being stared at by those eerie blood-red eyes made the 15-year-old Asuna's heart suddenly tremble. "Nanamiya-kun, you be careful. Wouldn't it have been better if she had done this earlier? Why put on a melodramatic scene?" Casting a sidelong glance at Asuna's retreating figure, Hiro muttered inwardly. For the original Asuna, who hadn't experienced the darkness of Sao and Aloe and whose life so far had been filled with various elite educations, this reaction to suddenly facing man-eating monsters like ghouls was normal. Despite being curious about why Yoshimura Ito would leave an unscathed original Asuna, the impending first life-and-death battle didn't leave him much time to think. "My food!" A somewhat garbled roar came from under the tiger-striped mask. The male ghoul suddenly lunged forward, and the 4 snake-like kagun on his back fiercely stabbed towards Hiro's head, heart, and other vital points. Whoosh whoosh! Amidst the sound of air being torn apart, Hiro didn't even use intrinsic time control and easily captured the trajectory of these 4 kagun. With a slight movement of his feet, he shifted half a step to the right. While turning his body at a small angle, he lightly tilted his head, perfectly dodging the 4 menacing kagun. The extent of this physical fitness enhancement seems to be much higher than I imagined. Staring at the male ghoul several meters ahead, whose kakugan had widened considerably, Hiro pondered inwardly. "What?" Looking at the calm and composed boy surrounded by 4 kagun, the ghoul, whose kakugan had widened even further, exclaimed in surprise and tried to stop his forward momentum. However, due to his previous rash action, this thought was difficult to realize. This movement, not an ordinary person, an investigator of student age? Or an investigator disguised as a student? Damn it! I was so close to joining Aojirai Tree, how could I be so unlucky? But it's okay, he has no weapons in his hands. He's definitely no match for me barehanded. Ordinary blades couldn't even break a ghoul's skin, let alone human hands and feet. Having determined this, the ghoul immediately abandoned the manipulation of his kagun, clenched his right fist, and charged towards the boy in front. Thump! The 4 kagun brushed past Hiro's ears, shoulders, and sides, deeply embedding themselves in the residential wall behind him. At the end of the alley, Yoshimura Ito, who had been eating earlier, had put down his food. A hint of curiosity appeared on the face beneath his mask as he looked at the two engaged in battle. "Die! It's not like the louder you shout, the greater the attack power will be. Do you think reality is a voice-controlled game?" Looking at the roaring male ghoul charging towards him, Hiro was speechless for a moment. Intrinsic time control, double speed. The moment the ability was activated, the world before his eyes underwent a very significant change. The ghoul's movements seemed to have entered a slow-motion replay slowed down several times, completely losing its previous fierce momentum. Even the curiosity in the eyes of the green-haired, one-eyed ghoul in the distance, Yoshimura Ito, was clearly visible. If the world he was in before was normal time, now it was like entering a weakened version of bullet time, and this was only double-speed intrinsic time control. Dynamic vision, nerve reflexes, brain activity, blood supply, all bodily functions within his body had doubled in speed. So this is what it feels like? Dodging the male ghoul's attack and moving to his side, Hiro still had the spare capacity to think about these things. The male ghoul slowly turned his head, his gaze shifting to Hiro's position, a hint of shock inevitably surfacing in his eyes. Clearly, he hadn't expected this ordinary human, Hiro, to be able to make such swift movements. Despite this, the ghoul didn't give up his intention to kill him. His right arm and the retracted 4 kagun simultaneously changed direction. But in Hiro's eyes, the ghoul's movements were as slow as a snail's pace. Coldly staring directly at the ghoul's Kokugan, Hiro raised his right hand. His index and middle fingers closed together, surpassing the hardness of steel with a human body Navy 6 styles, finger gun. SHHH 2 fingers pierced into the ghoul's temples, instantly extinguishing the other's consciousness and ability to move. The movements of the Kogun and the fist froze simultaneously, and then... thump! The ghoul with the tiger-striped mask fell face down at Hiro's feet. Ho killed a ghoul barehanded, young man, you don't seem like an ordinary person. Hiro followed the voice and looked over. The green-haired, one-eyed ghoul in the distance had stopped eating. His entire body was enveloped in his yukaku, and in the blink of an eye, he transformed into the one-eyed owl. Every 250 power stones equals 1 bonus chapter. Chapter 6-6, the unattainable 5th tier luck. Kogun as lush as bird feathers enveloped his entire body, and his original height of just over a meter suddenly increased to more than 2 meters. If Hiro hadn't personally witnessed the transformation process, he would never have been able to connect the masked little guy from before with the giant in front of him. No scent of demons, angels, fallen angels, gods, or vampires. Young man, what exactly are you? A distorted voice, as if altered by a voice changer, came from within the one-eyed owl in the distance and was received by Hiro's ears. Even from this far away, you can smell my scent. As expected of you, Yoshimura Ito, but, when have you ever smelled the scent of demons, angels, or fallen angels? And why didn't the angels purify you on the spot when they saw you? Although I am indeed quite strong, just as you smelled, I am indeed a human, a pure-blood human. Separated by a distance of 10 meters or so, Hiro spread his hands innocently, a hint of helplessness in his tone. Asuna and I were just passing by and didn't intend to disturb your meal. As he said these words, his eyes weren't looking at Yoshimura Ito's Kakuja form but were focused on her core body, on the silver-white 5 above it. Although he was very envious, Hiro also understood that with his current abilities, relying solely on intrinsic time control and finger gun, he didn't have the strength to directly defeat Yoshimura Ito, the one-eyed owl, let alone last for tens of minutes or even hours. After all, his 2 fingers were only so long. Even if they could penetrate her defense, how much damage could they do? Perhaps he wouldn't even be able to touch Yoshimura Ito's real body hidden inside. Human? Let's just say so. Judging from her tone, Yoshimura Ito obviously didn't believe Hiro's words. Young man, judging from your expression, you don't seem to have any hostility towards ghouls, these man-eating monsters. Is that my imagination? Your feeling is correct. I indeed don't have much hostility towards ghouls. Of course, this is on the condition that they, well, or rather, you don't court death and don't harm the people around me. Seeing that Yoshimura Ito, who had transformed into the one-eyed owl, didn't seem to have any intention of attacking, Hiro raised an eyebrow slightly, turned around, and wanted to leave the alley to reunite with Asuna, who had already walked far away. Is that so? Watching Hiro turn and leave, Yoshimura Ito muttered softly to herself. After thinking for a moment, she didn't attack but used her 2 Kogun to form arms and picked up the food beside her feet. However, thinking of the original Asuna, Hiro suddenly realized something, stopped in his tracks, and looked back at the large figure picking up the corpse, seemingly intending to pack up the food and take it home to continue enjoying. Oh, right, why did you want to capture Asuna alive just now, and even specifically requested no injuries from this small fry? Hiro kicked the already stiff corpse of the male ghoul with his left foot and asked curiously. If she only regarded Asuna as food, Yoshimura Ito wouldn't have needed to emphasize the detail of no injuries, unless she herself had a habit of live food. But according to the image in Hiro's memory, Yoshimura Ito didn't seem to be a ghoul with such a nasty habit. That girl, it's nothing special, I just didn't want to hurt Mikan's older sister. After hearing the reason given by Yoshimura Ito, the corner of Hiro's mouth twitched violently. Mikan? Yuuki? Yuuki Mikan? After Sword Art Online, Highschool DxD, Tokyo Ghoul, We Never Learn, and my teen romantic comedy Snafu, are you throwing in a Love Are You world too? Are you kidding me? Moreover, judging from the homeroom teacher's surname, Kyudo, there might even be a possibility of guilty crown getting mixed in. My mom is a young, bustic, blonde housewife whose maiden name was Takasu, and her name is Yasuko. It seems, probably, should still be another work getting mixed in. If you want to find me, go to the Antioku coffee shop in the 20th ward of Tokyo and look for the manager. At that time, we can have a good chat about various topics related to ghouls. The coffee shop in the 20th ward, looking for your dad, huh? I understand. If I have time, I'll go see you with Asuna, Yoshimura. Waving his hand somewhat helplessly, Hiro lifted his feet again, completely ignoring Yoshimura Ito's reaction. Yoshimura. Does he know me? Or did he recognize me? No, 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 let's not consider when I might have met him. I was wearing a mask just now. How could he recognize me just by my eyes and body shape? The pupils of Yoshimura Ito, whose entire body was enveloped in his yukaku, suddenly contracted, and his heart was filled with suspicion and uncertainty. His two Kagun arms unconsciously used excessive force. Clatter! It wasn't until the sound of something falling to the ground rang out that she snapped out of her thoughts. In this state, I don't have the appetite to swallow. Looking at the indistinguishable mass at her feet, Yoshimura Ito muttered to herself. Glancing at the corpse of the ghoul in the distance, she threw the mangled remains in her right hand to the side, picked up the yellow-haired ghoul's corpse in a few steps, and disappeared into the secluded alley. Yes, 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 I have another classmate. When Hiro reached Asuna's side, he happened to hear these words and quickly leaned down to add, escaped together. Asuna's body stiffened for a moment, then she suddenly turned around. Seeing Hiro's unharmed figure, her eyes instantly turned red, and she was about to burst into tears. Hello? Hello? Did your classmate escape together? Or what happened? Was that your classmate's voice just now? Hello, hello. Looking at the surprised and joyful expression on the girl's face, Hiro raised his right index finger to his lips, making a shushing gesture, and pointed to the still ringing phone in her hand. Yes, that was my classmate. He's fine now and doesn't seem to be hurt. With a slight sob in her voice, Asuna answered the CCG personnel's inquiry on the other end of the phone. Every 250 power stones equals 1 bonus chapter 7 to 7, come on. Let's hurt each other. Perhaps due to its proximity to Tokyo, where ghoul activity was most rampant, the CCG's response in Saitama Prefecture was also swift. In less than 10 minutes, many armed personnel in white uniforms got out of transport vehicles and rushed into the alley in front of Hiro and Asuna, leaving some personnel behind to guard the two of them. Soon after, a middle-aged man in a black suit, looking like a leader, stepped out from the crowd and came before the two of them. Miss Asuna, is that correct? After a period of buffer time, Asuna had recovered from the shock and unease she had just experienced. Hearing this person's inquiry, a composed expression befitting her elite status reappeared on Asuna's face. She released Hiro's right hand and stepped forward. Yes, Asuna replied calmly, looking at the man. Mr. Yuaki has been informed of this incident and has already dispatched a special driver to pick you up. Please wait here for a few minutes. Our CCG personnel will be responsible for ensuring your safety. The middle-aged man, who was the leader of the CCG, spoke to Asuna, a teenage girl, in a low and polite tone, while the surrounding CCG personnel still looked as if they were used to such a sight. Watching this scene, Hiro felt not only strange but also somewhat puzzled. Although the Yuaki family seemed quite wealthy, did they have such great influence in the original work? Could it be because of this butterfly effect of mine? Or was there some other reason for this change? Recalling Asuna's words about her father's strange behavior, Hiro felt that the latter possibility was more likely. After all, Yuaki Shaozu was a big figure who knew about the underworld. I understand. I'll wait here. Nodding at the man, Asuna turned around and looked at Hiro with a hint of apology. I'm sorry, Nanamiya-kun, I still have to wait here for my father's arrangements. I won't be able to accompany you for the rest of the way. Do you think I'm a child? Hearing Asuna's words, Hiro rolled his eyes somewhat speechlessly. If it weren't for comforting you, I would have slipped away long ago. Why would I still be waiting here idly? As for statements and testimonies, with a young lady like Asuna around, there was no need for an ordinary person like him to step in. Since there's nothing else for me here, I'll take my leave first. See you tomorrow, Yuaki. Saying goodbye to the girl in front of him, Hiro turned around and walked towards the Kirigaya residence. See you tomorrow, Hiro-kun. Behind him, Asuna waved her hand with a soft smile. Watching Hiro's figure disappear, Asuna couldn't help but pout slightly, a hint of resentment in her tone. Honestly, you were calling me Asuna before, why did you switch back to Yuaki? However, neither Hiro, nor Asuna, nor the group of CCG personnel noticed that on the rooftop of a nearby house, a petite figure wearing Kyoa Academy High School uniform stood quietly, having been there for an unknown amount of time. The next morning, Hiro, as usual, arrived at the classroom early. In the empty classroom, besides him, there was only Konako and 2 or 3 other random classmates. Good morning, Nanamiya-kun. Just as he sat down, Hiro heard a greeting from in front of him, causing him to be slightly stunned. Oh, good morning, Ko. Tujao. She had a look of not wanting to bother with me yesterday, why is she suddenly greeting me? Glancing at the space above Konako's head, where there was a lead grey 3 yesterday, Hiro felt a bit puzzled inwardly. At this moment, Konako, who was sitting in front of him, turned around, her emotionless amber eyes directly meeting his. Could you please not add KO to the beginning of my name? Nanamiya-kun, I don't think we're familiar enough for that. Alright, I got it, Tujao-san. Clicking his tongue, Hiro turned his gaze to the left, looking at the empty schoolyard, and asked in a flat tone, so, Tujao-san, is there something you need from me? I don't think we're familiar enough to exchange pleasantries, are we? Hearing the barbed question in his words, Konako frowned imperceptibly, clearly displeased by Hiro's attitude. After looking at him silently for a moment, Konako lowered her voice, as if not wanting to be heard by her classmates, and said softly, yesterday afternoon, after school, what happened to you and Yuaki in the alleyway? I saw it. His eyelids twitched slightly, and Hiro shifted his gaze from the window back to the cold little face of Konako in front of him. Since you saw it all, why didn't you step in to help? Were our identities as classmates not enough? Or do you simply dislike me? You made my 2 fingers touch something unclean. So? Looking into Konako's amber eyes, Hiro asked back nonchalantly, showing no sign of panic after his secret was revealed. If you don't want me to tell anyone about this, come to the Occult Research Club after school this afternoon. Are you threatening me? Hearing Konako's words, Hiro frowned, a sense of displeasure rising within him more or less. Hiro could guess the reason for Konako's request, the Occult Research Club president, Rias Gremory's order. And the purpose was nothing more than to see if he had the possibility and potential to become one of her servants. Hiro looked at the emotionless L*Lee in front of him and chuckled, the corners of his mouth lifting a few centimeters. Then shouldn't I say something like this, if you don't want me to tell anyone about Chiron, then what? Come on. Let's hurt each other. Looking at Konako's eyes, which had suddenly narrowed, the smile on Hiro's face became even more cheerful. Every 250 power stones equals 1 bonus chapter 8-8, Konako, Naya creaked the moment he heard the words Chiron. Hiro heard a sound like a fist clenching tightly, and the source was none other than the silent white-haired L*Lee in front of him. Staring at the smile on his face in silence for a good while, Konako finally recovered from her initial shock. My tone just now was inappropriate. I apologize for that. I'm very sorry. Facing Hiro's counterattack, Konako didn't choose to confront him but directly apologized. Then, maintaining a calm and serious tone, she looked at Hiro and earnestly requested, Nanamiya-kun, could you please come to the Occult Research Club's activity room with me after school? It won't take up too much of your time. About that. Under Konako's gaze, Hiro tilted his head, pretending to think for a moment. Although it seems, probably, should be that I don't have anything important to do after school this afternoon, but... Hiro suddenly stopped speaking here. Under Konako's slightly puzzled gaze, he raised his right index finger, a hint of mischievousness appearing on his face. If Tujao-san can do the beckoning cat gesture in front of me and say Naya, then I won't have anything important to do after school this afternoon. How about it? Would Tujao-san like to consider it? Looking at the smile on his face, Konako didn't agree immediately, nor did she disagree immediately. She just showed an expression of thought and hesitation and fell silent. Looking at this, it seems, really, there's a chance? Noticing the hesitant expression on Konako's face, Hiro raised an eyebrow, a hint of surprise in his heart. Originally, he planned to brush it off with the excuse of just kidding after Konako refused and then follow her to the old school building after school to see Rias Gremory and Akeno, as well as the luck values above their heads. As for the remaining Kiba Ueto and the sealed Gasper, he would see them if he could, and if not, it wouldn't matter. The main luck values should be on those 2 more prominent heroines. Not long after, the sides of the silent Konako's cheeks gradually flushed with a color like sunset clouds. Coupled with her delicate, doll-like face, it even made Hiro somewhat reluctant to look away. Although he really wanted to see Konako do the beckoning cat gesture and say meow in his heart, considering the influence on the surrounding classmates and the potential rise and fall of Konako's favorability, Hiro silently gave up the idea of continuing to wait. If you're unwilling, then forget it. I was just... However, before he could finish his sentence, he was interrupted by the blushing Konako in front of him. No. This is a task assigned by the president, and it must be completed perfectly. Alright, since you're willing, then I'll keep waiting. After being rejected by Konako, Hiro rested his elbows on the desk, propped his chin on his palms, and stared at her silently, waiting for the moment she made up her mind. Perhaps knowing that the longer she dragged it out, the more classmates would enter the classroom, Konako didn't make Hiro wait long. Less than 10 seconds after saying those words, the scarlet-faced Konako slowly raised her right hand, bent her 5 fingers, and made the common beckoning cat gesture. Then, looking directly into his pair of brown eyes, she parted her lips slightly whether it was shyness or indignation in her amber eyes. In any case, Konako, maintaining this gesture, stared intently at Hiro, as if urging him to do something. I understand, I'll go with you after school. Touching his nose, and confirming that his body hadn't shown any embarrassing reactions, Hiro spoke sincerely. Few face to face, Hiro could clearly see Konako breathe a sigh of relief, as if a psychological burden had been lifted. Click, the sound of a camera shutter rang out, reminding Konako that she hadn't yet lowered her right hand and come out of the beckoning cat pose. Thankfully, the shutter sound on our country phones couldn't be turned off, otherwise, this photo of Konako-chan would probably be copied countless times. Glancing at the stiff-looking, bespectacled guy near the classroom door, Hiro muttered inwardly. Thank you for your trouble. Nodding slightly at him, Konako stood up with a whoosh and accurately located the person who had secretly photographed her. Then, with her usual silent expression, she quickly walked to that person's desk, ignored his explanations and dodges, and snatched his phone. Click, different from before, this time it wasn't a sneaky photo but the sound of a phone being scrapped. The money, I'll give it to you after school. Looking at the bespectacled guy, Konako said coldly. No, no need, it was my fault. Konako-chan, you did nothing wrong, so consider this phone as a lesson for me. No need to talk about compensation. The bespectacled guy waved his hands repeatedly. After school in the afternoon, Hiro politely declined Asuna's suggestion to accompany him and followed Konako to the old school building behind Kyoa Academy, which looked dilapidated on the outside but had a different world inside. Holding the lacquered red doorknob in his right hand, Konako turned her head to look at Hiro before entering. Nanamiya-kun, the president and vice president are both top-tier beauties in the academy. When you meet them later, please be mindful of your image and don't be too rude, understand? Understood, understood. Facing Konako's instructions, Hiro waved his hand dismissively, clearly not taking it to heart. I remember perfectly what Rias and Akeno look like, their measurements, and their personalities. What's there to be amazed by? Seeing his reaction, Konako frowned but didn't say anything more, just used her right hand to forcefully push open the door that didn't look light. Creak 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 creak, every 250 power stones equals 1 bonus chapter 9-9, Shaming the Gremory. President, I've brought him. Following behind Konako, Hiro entered the Occult Research Club, one of the central areas of Kyoa Academy. Although it was still a bright and sunny time outside, inside, only a few lit candles served as illumination, making the entire room very dim. If his eyesight hadn't been enhanced by the system, Hiro probably wouldn't have been able to clearly see the two big sisters with curious expressions at the end of the room. Hey, 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 I know you're all devils, so you don't have to worry about not being able to see even in this environment, but I'm just an ordinary human. Can you turn on the lights? Sitting down on the guest sofa in front of Rias's desk, Hiro complained without any sense of being a guest. He knows our identities as devils. Deeply gazing at the calm and composed young man's face not far away, Rias felt a surge of suspicion in her heart. How did he find out? Judging from the background information Sana gave, Hiro should just be an ordinary person who moved to this place 5 years ago and had no contact with the underworld. However, as the next head of the pure-blooded Gremory family, Rias had always received an elite education that surpassed even Asuna's, so she didn't show these thoughts on her face. My apologies, I wasn't considerate enough. A faint hint of apology flashed across Rias's face as she snapped her right fingers. Snap. Whether it was the sound of a switch or the sound of Rias's snap, all the table lamps, chandeliers, warm lights, and fluorescent lights in the room turned on simultaneously. The sudden change in light intensity made Hiro instinctively squint his eyes. It took a few seconds before he could barely adjust. Even after being strengthened by the system, I still can't catch up to the racial advantages of devils. Looking at the reactions on Konako's face beside him and Kiba Ueto's face opposite him, Hiro muttered inwardly. Seemingly noticing his gaze, the famous handsome blonde of Kyoa Academy, Kiba Ueto, looked towards him, offering a polite yet not overly friendly smile. Nanamiya-kun, is there something wrong with me? No, I just think your devil eyes are really good. Casually responding to Kiba Ueto's inquiry, Hiro's gaze drifted past Konako's head on his right and met the eyes of the beauty with long, vibrant red hair that reached past her waist. So, Rias Gremory, why did you specifically have Konako bring me here? If it's about inviting me to become your servant, then forget it. I have no intention of giving up my human identity. With his first words, Hiro threw out his bottom line, completely unconcerned about his situation of being surrounded by devils. Steal. Looking at the silver-white number 5 above Rias's head, he silently muttered in his heart. And then, he received no response from the system. It was only about 2 meters away. Was that still not enough? Unable to steal the luck belonging to Rias Gremory, he had no choice but to try focusing on the handsome blonde in front of him. His gaze subtly swept over the top of Kiba Ueto's head, at the lead grey 2. Ding! The time required for this extraction is 20 minutes. Do you wish to begin? Begin. Konako is 3, Asuna is 3, Rias is 5, Akeno is 5, Kiba Ueto is 2. This luck ranking doesn't just seem to be related to strength, but also to the amount of screen time. While glancing away and waiting for Rias's response, Hiro recalled the plot of that hot-blooded harem anime and Kiba Ueto's role, making this judgment. Current task: ask Rias Gremory for her 3 sizes and obtain the accurate numbers. The remaining time will be reduced by 20 minutes. 20 minutes? Directly to 0? Listening to the system notification in his mind, Hiro couldn't help but raise an eyebrow slightly, feeling somewhat surprised. But after the surprise, a strong urge to arose. He was clearly stealing Kiba Ueto's luck, so why was the task requirement directed at his master, Rias Gremory? Although I am curious as to how Nanamiya-kun learned this information, and I am somewhat disappointed that you have refused to become one of my own, my character, Rias Gremory's, is not so low as to force someone to become my servant. Perhaps she had imagined something from his gaze. Rias looked solemn and spoke to him seriously, although there was a hint of regret in her tone, as if she had missed out on something wonderful. Then, Rias got to the main point. The reason I had Konako bring you here today is to confirm something with you. Yesterday, you and Miss Asuna encountered 2 ghouls who were feeding in the alleyway, is that correct? Hiro nodded at Rias. You first had Miss Asuna leave, then you killed one of the ghouls and confronted the other. After exchanging a few words, you and the other ghoul didn't fight and left separately, is that right? A human who could kill a ghoul barehanded, how could he seem like an ordinary human? A sacred gear user? An onmyoji? A sorcerer? Or a descendant of some ancient family? However, no matter the truth, after reincarnating him as one of my servants, he would be stronger than some ignorant ordinary person. Looking at the boy in front of her, Rias secretly made plans in her heart. What she said before was not forcing, but she hadn't said she had given up the idea of persuasion. Then, what did you and that ghoul say to each other? Would you mind telling me, Nanamiya-kun? As she said this, a smile that made Hiro's eyelids twitch appeared on Rias's face, like the kind of smile a Yandere girl shows in the last moment before turning dark. In my, Rias Gremory's, territory, to dare to eat people so brazenly, to disgrace the name of Gremory, unless I crush it into pieces, I cannot quell the anger in my heart. Disgracing the name of Gremory, that's a big label, that Yoshimura Ito guy probably can't handle it, right? Knowing Asuna's younger sister, Mikon, her age is probably similar to Mikon's, around 13 or 14 years old in middle school. In the late stages of the original work, even in her full power state at 27 years old after her RC cells went berserk or in her final Kakuja form, Yoshimura Ito might not be able to defeat an upper-class devil, let alone now, probably at the age of a little L*li staring at the serious anger on Rias's face, Hiro felt a slight headache. Chapter 10-10, Taigu, March of the Dead, Yutsufusa. Of course, since this question has already interfered with your personal information, Nanamiya-kun, I can agree to a not too excessive request from you. Seeing the hesitant expression on Hiro's face, Rias added this, as if afraid he would refuse. Not explicitly refusing, Hiro looked at Rias and pondered for a moment, then narrowed his eyes slightly and asked back, not too excessive, what counts as not too excessive? Thump. At this moment, Akeno, with a smile on her face, approached with a tea tray and placed a cup of tea in front of each of the 3 of them, her tone teasing as she spoke. Era, Nanamiya-kun, are you planning to make some lewd request to Rias? But that's understandable. Rias is so beautiful, and Nanamiya-kun is a boy in his puberty, so having such thoughts is normal. Placing the 3 cups of tea on the guest table, Akeno straightened up and looked at Rias at the head of the table. You agree, don't you, Rias? Akeno. Looking at the joyful expression on her best friend's face, Rias rolled her eyes somewhat helplessly. Nanamiya-kun, hentai. Konako, who was originally sitting on Hiro's right, showed a hint of disgust in her eyes and imperceptibly shifted her position, moving a short distance away from him. I haven't even said it yet, Akeno was the one who said it, okay? Lowering his head and looking at the sudden increase of more than 10 centimeters in the distance between him and Konako, Hiro was speechless for a moment. However, you're right, there needs to be a limit. Interlocking her fingers and supporting her chin, Rias thought for a few seconds before lowering her palms a few dozen centimeters, gesturing twice in the air. Physical contact is forbidden. At most, I'll let you take a look at my oppai. As for the rest, I'll consider it after you become one of my servants. Rias is so open-minded. Akeno gently touched her cheek with her right hand, her pair of light purple eyes slightly narrowed, coupled with the smile at the corner of her mouth, looking very seductive. Nanamiya-kun, are you tempted? Do you have any thoughts of joining the club and becoming one of Rias's servants? However, he didn't. Sweeping his gaze across the teasing smile on Akeno's face, Hiro clicked his tongue and didn't respond to her teasing. If that's the case. Looking at the smiling red-haired beauty not far away, Hiro hadn't finished a sentence when Konako's slightly warning voice sounded beside him, Nanamiya-kun, please watch your wording. No need to tell me, I wasn't planning on touching her. Glancing at Konako's warning gaze, Hiro didn't show any reaction, maintaining his previous tone and saying lightly, Senior Rias, you can just tell me your 3 sizes. Although I already know this in my heart. Hiro added silently in his mind. Due to his absolute memory, he still remembered a series of female character information he had seen on fandom in his previous life, most of which included height, weight, and 3 sizes, and Rias, as a somewhat well-known character, was naturally no exception. Hearing Hiro's request, the expression on Rias's face slightly froze. On the other hand, Akeno on her right had an even brighter smile on her face. Just that. There was a slight hint of surprise in Rias's tone. Yes, just that. Noticing the faint look of disappointment that appeared on Rias's face, Hiro couldn't help but find it a bit amusing. You're disappointed just because I didn't follow your expectations and make an excessive request? Do you have that much confidence in your charm? The Rias in the original work doesn't seem to have this attribute, does she? Rias's charm didn't work, is it because it's not big enough? Hearing Akeno's gloating tone, Rias turned her head and glared at her resentfully. It's only 3 centimeters bigger than mine, what's there to be proud of, Akeno? I was just stating a fact, where's the pride? Or rather, Rias, you. Enough. Waving her hand to interrupt Akeno's remaining words, Rias looked at Hiro, the culprit, with a hint of resentment in her eyes. B99, W58, H90. These are the measurements I took before the start of the school year. If Nanamiya-kun doesn't believe them and wants to verify them himself, I wouldn't mind. No need, I trust Senior Rias's credibility. Looking at the red-haired beauty who had stood up not far away, Hiro's mouth twitched slightly, and he quickly refused. Although he did have the thought of verifying it himself, if he really did that, after returning, the glaring Konako wouldn't let him off so easily. Facts proved that Rias didn't deceive him on this issue. Ding. Second tier luck extraction completed. Congratulations host for obtaining Taigu, March of the Dead, Yutsufuza. Yutsufuza, Kuroami's weapon. After hearing the voice in his mind, Hiro ignored the bickering between Rias and Akeno in front of him and silently recalled the relevant information about the Taigu Yutsufuza. It can control the people killed by this sword through a curse, up to 8 corpse puppets can be controlled. The puppets look the same as they did when they were alive and can be controlled freely. After the ability is released, they will turn into ordinary corpses. The trigger condition for control is the final blow, not the accumulated damage. The weakness is that the more corpses controlled by Yutsufuza during activation, the more it will reduce the host's own abilities. Then, Nanamiya-kun, can you tell us what you know about that ghoul? Of course. Under the gaze of the 4 people around him, Hiro concealed some key information and slowly spoke. The remaining ghoul had short dark green hair. Judging from the voice, it was a girl. Her height was less than 1.5 meters. She was a ghoul from Tokyo and seemed to have accidentally passed by Saitama Prefecture this time. Chapter 11-11, Asia's belated arrival. Bang, quietly locking the door behind him, Hiro, who had returned late at night, didn't make a big fuss, afraid of disturbing Yasuko, Sugiha, and others who might already be asleep. However, what he didn't expect was that as soon as he entered the house and closed the door, a tall, blonde figure directly entered his vision when he looked up. Moreover, the entire person's image kept enlarging. Hiro-kun Nanamiya Yasuko, who was originally standing in the hallway more than a meter away, completely disregarded her image as a mother and pounced on Hiro, who had a helpless expression. To prevent his mother from falling flat on her face, he had no choice but to reach out with both hands and steadily catch the incoming Nanamiya Yasuko. Thump. Seriously, why did you come back so late? Don't you know how worried your mother was? Just yesterday there was a case of ghouls eating people, and you dared to wander outside at night, and why couldn't I reach your phone? Did it run out of battery outside? While complaining like this, Nanamiya Yasuko straightened up and groped around with the help of the overhead light, afraid that her son had been attacked by thugs or monsters and had some external injuries. Phone? Skillfully pushing away the overly worried Nanamiya Yasuko, Hiro took out the new phone he had just gotten less than a year ago from his pocket. Alright, it really ran out of battery. He pressed the power button with his finger and waved the unresponsive phone screen in front of Nanamiya Yasuko, a hint of apology flashing across his face. It was my carelessness this time, I'll be more careful next time. Seriously, Hiro-kun not coming back so late almost made me call the police, you know. Okay, I got it. I'll be more careful about this before going out next time. Listening to the continuous complaints behind him, Hiro, who had changed into indoor shoes, waved his hand impatiently and trotted away from his mother's sight. Although having such a beautiful mother was indeed quite nice, her excessive pampering, even bordering on spoiling her children, really made him feel somewhat helpless. Sugyaha. Just as he went upstairs, Hiro saw a girl in pajamas, looking sleepy-eyed, standing at the door of his room. It's so late, why aren't you sleeping? What are you doing here? Walking to his room door, Hiro reached out and gently ruffled Kirigaya Sugyaha's hair, chuckling softly. Nii-chan. Kirigaya Sugyaha, wearing pajamas, suddenly jumped like a startled cat. The girl, her sleepiness completely gone, quickly took a step back, avoiding his hand. Her cheeks flushed slightly as she turned her gaze to the nameplate on the room door to her right. Hiro. I was wondering why I couldn't open it, turns out I went to the wrong place. Besides her shyness, an embarrassed look also appeared on Kirigaya Sugyaha's face, probably because her sleepy appearance had been seen by her older brother. Ignoring the girl's changing expression, Hiro glanced at the lead grey number 1 that had appeared above Kirigaya Sugyaha's head sometime. Steal. Ding. The time required for this extraction is 1 second. Do you wish to begin? 1 second, just complete it directly. Hiro muttered inwardly. Begin. Ding. First tier luck extraction completed. Congratulations host for obtaining Innate Body A++. Innate Body A++, the name sounds quite useful, but what exactly does it do? Increase health points? Remove abnormal statuses? Increase attack power? Creak creak creak. At this moment, behind him, the door to the room belonging to Kirigaya Sugyaha and her mother slowly opened. Kirigaya Midori stepped forward and directly grabbed Kirigaya Sugyaha's wrist. Alright, Sugyaha, come over here. Hiro came back so late, don't go and disturb him. Saying this, Kirigaya Midori forcefully pulled Kirigaya Sugyaha back. Pulled forward by her mother, Kirigaya Sugyaha suppressed the shyness in her heart and turned around. Then, Nii-chan, good night. Sugyaha, good night. Watching Kirigaya Sugyaha being led away by her mother, Hiro chuckled softly and waved his hand in response. Bang, he only came back a little late, why were the three of them, no, it should be his mother and Aunt Midori, not asleep? Were they that worried about him? Glancing at the closed door, Hiro shook his head, feeling somewhat helpless. Hiro-kun hearing his mother's voice about to reach the top of the stairs, Hiro pushed open his room door and locked it behind him. Click. In Japan, starting from the Showa Memorial Day on April 29th, there would be a Golden Week holiday lasting at least 7 days and up to 9 days. During this time, if conditions permitted, most Japanese people would choose to go abroad with their families or travel somewhere within the country to spend this holiday. With Hiro, the plagiarist, in the family, the 4 of them naturally belonged to this group as well. And the destination was the United Kingdom, far away on the other side of the earth. Is this Britain? Why does it feel no different from Japan? Just getting off the plane, Nanamiya Yasuko, with a curious expression, voiced this thought. Because this is still within the confines of the British airport, of course it's not much different from Japan. Carrying the luggage and following behind the 2 elders, Hiro muttered blandly. Yasuko, be a little more reserved. The gazes around us are a bit strange. Beside Nanamiya Yasuko, Kirigaya Midori, holding Kirigaya Sugyaha's hand, also had a smile on her face. Half an hour later, the group of 4 arrived at the entrance of their reserved hotel, and then Hiro looked at a passerby who resembled a blonde nun, and the lead grey 3 above her head, a slightly strange expression on his face. I was wondering why I didn't see her. So, she has just been kicked out of the church or orphanage, hasn't met those fallen angels and stray priests yet, and hasn't been lured to Kyoto town, which is now Saitama Prefecture. Chapter 12-12, Defeating Kiba Ueto IC. Thank you for the information, Nanamiya-kun. After listening to Hiro's narration, Rias slightly furrowed her brow and nodded at him. They're all devils, and I don't plan on becoming one. I can't get Rias's and Akeno's luck for now, and Gasper is holed up in that small room and won't come out. It seems, there's nothing else for me here? Taking a sip of the moderately warm tea, Hiro looked at the red-haired beauty with a thoughtful expression on her face at the head of the table, thinking this in his heart. However, just as Rias's concerns came to an end, the smiling blonde-haired handsome man opposite him spoke up at an inopportune moment. Konako told me that Nanamiya-kun killed a ghoul yesterday with just 2 fingers. You must be a very strong person, right? If you don't mind, would you like to spar with me? To be honest, for devils like me, only combat is the best way to improve our strength. Thump spar. Putting down the teacup in his hand, Hiro looked at the smile on the handsome man's face opposite him and repeated with some doubt. I'm just a slightly stronger ordinary person. Why is the sacred gear user of a low-class devil like you looking for me? Or is this your master, Rias's, intention, to test me? Glancing at Rias and Akeno, who showed no unusual reactions, Hiro pondered for a moment and ultimately didn't refuse. No problem, should we go to the open space behind the old school building? He was also somewhat curious about his current strength, or rather, the upper limit of the system's physical fitness enhancement. Just then, Kiba Yuato proposed a spar. That's right, there's just enough open space there. Seeing him agree, a slight hint of excitement appeared on Kiba Yuato's face. He turned his head to look at Rias on his left and requested, President. I agree. Just as Kiba Yuato opened his mouth, Rias responded immediately, as if she had expected it. Coincidentally, I'm also very interested in Nanamiya-kun's strength. Please allow me to watch. What about you, Akeno and Konako? Supporting herself on the table with both hands, Rias stood up and looked at her other 2 servants one after another. Of course. Please do allow me to watch. Akeno gently touched her cheek with her right hand, her light purple eyes slightly narrowed. Konako didn't speak, just nodded. Then, my knight, I look forward to your performance. Glancing at Hiro, who had as expected expression on his face, Rias looked at Kiba Yuato opposite him and chuckled softly. Yes. President. Hey, is it necessary to make the atmosphere so serious? Hiro, who was watching, couldn't help but think. A few minutes later, in the open grassy area behind the old school building of Kyoa Academy, Hiro and Kiba Yuato each held a magic sword with identical appearance, abilities, and length, facing each other from more than 10 meters. Let me say this first, although I've picked up this magic sword, I know absolutely nothing about swordsmanship or sword techniques. Kiba, don't have too high expectations of me. Swinging the jet black magic sword in his right hand casually a couple of times, Hiro looked at the serious-looking blonde handsome man in the distance and stated it plainly. Understood. Kiba Yuato, who had entered battle mode, looked serious. Nanamiya-kun, please rest assured, I will show appropriate restraint. Show restraint? It's good to have that thought, but don't end up being unable to even beat me. I'm ready. Hiro said calmly. At the same time, intrinsic time control, 5 times speed activated. Feeling his body, which felt no pain, and the surrounding environment, which had slowed down many times, Hiro took a deep breath and braced himself. Although he couldn't be certain of the specific reason, judging from yesterday's experiment, the drawbacks of intrinsic time control didn't seem to apply in this world, or rather, on him. In other words, as long as he was willing, he could accelerate his personal time to 5 times the normal speed at any time, until his stamina gave out. Well, then. In Hiro's vision, Kiba Yuato, more than 10 meters away, slightly bent his waist, preparing to charge forward. Then, he approached Hiro at a speed even slower than a normal person running. So slow. Calmly watching Kiba Yuato's movements, he muttered inwardly before reducing the speed of intrinsic time control from 5 to 4. Just as the speed adjustment was completed, Kiba Yuato's speed suddenly increased significantly in his vision. Although it couldn't be described as lightning fast, it was many times faster than the speed even slower than a normal person he had shown before. Having said that, this level posed no challenge to Hiro now. Not only could he capture Kiba Yuato's movements, but he could also discern where Kiba's gaze was directed and how he intended to attack next. Looking at it this way, I can easily defeat a low-class devil after using 5 times the speed now. It's hard to say about a mid-class devil without a comparison, but, was Kiba Yuato a low-class or mid-class devil? Clang. While casually blocking Kiba Yuato's magic sword attack, Hiro still had the spare capacity to think about these questions. N.A. Me, Kun, you are very strong. Kiba Ueto said, praising him word by word with a hint of excitement on his face. Knowing that speaking would turn into a 4 times speed fast forward, Hero just shrugged and didn't respond. The magic swords touched and separated, then collided again. Clang, but this time, Hero had no intention of continuing to entangle with Kiba Ueto. The speed of intrinsic time control increased by another level. His free left hand flashed, accurately and swiftly grabbing the hilt of the magic sword in Kiba Ueto's hand, preventing him from continuing his movements. At the same time, amidst the zzz sound of metal friction, Hero took advantage of the time Kiba Ueto hadn't broken free and pressed the magic sword in his right hand onto his left shoulder. I think, this should be the end. Ending the accelerated state of intrinsic time control, Hero looked at the somewhat stiff face a few dozen centimeters away and said lightly. After a moment of silence, Kiba Ueto shook his head with a wry smile and said helplessly, I lost. I didn't expect Nanamiya-kun to be so strong. I was careless. That's right, before you know the other party's strength, you have no right to hold back, Ueto. Remember this lesson well. Rias crossed her arms in front of her chest, came to Hero and Kiba Ueto, and reprimanded Kiba Ueto. Yes, President. There shouldn't be anything else for me now, right? Then I'll go back first. The magic sword in his hand disappeared as magic power. Hero looked directly into Rias's deep red eyes and said this, then turned around on his own and walked towards the path he had come from. Are you really not considering becoming one of my servants, my family, Nanamiya-kun? Behind him, Rias's voice came again. If it's the kind of family like a husband, I might consider it. But the kind of family like a servant, I'll pass. Hero waved his hand without looking back, his interest lacking. Chapter 13-13, Servant plus Husband equals killing 2 birds with 1 stone? Watching Hero's figure disappear, the smile on Akeno's face slightly faded as she looked at her friend and master beside her, who had a helpless expression. Rias, what do you think of Hero? He could become an excellent servant, it's just a pity. Looking in the direction Hero had disappeared, Rias sighed, shook her head, and there was a lot of regret in her tone besides helplessness. As an ordinary human, defeating Kiba Ueto, who hadn't used his full strength, without using any magic, spells, or curses to enhance himself, was enough to demonstrate Hero's strength. Moreover, according to Konako, his movements were several times faster than when I saw him yesterday. As expected, Hero is also a sacred gear user, and most likely a combat-type sacred gear. Rias deeply believed Konako's judgment, her tone quite emotional. When it came to choosing servants, Rias Gremory had always adhered to the principle of better to have none than a bad one, and she also insisted on choosing them herself. Those with bad character or poor compatibility would not be looked upon favorably by her. It was precisely because of this that she hadn't yet gathered a full set of evil pieces at her age. Otherwise, with her status, she could easily collect many excellent pieces. And this person, Hero, his strength had already been verified by Kiba Ueto. Through their interaction just now, Rias could also understand that he wasn't a person with bad character. The only problem was, he held a very strong wariness and aversion towards becoming her servant and being reincarnated as a devil. As for that last husband remark, Rias simply took it as Hero's jest and didn't take it to heart. But, since he's so outstanding, isn't it a bit too much of a waste to just give up like this? That's right, President. Konako nodded, softly agreeing with Akeno's opinion. He's my classmate, and we sit near each other in class. There are no student council members in our class, so there are many opportunities. There are many opportunities, so it's too early to give up now. Rias, as her master, naturally understood the meaning behind Konako's words. Indeed, with Konako, there might still be a chance to reincarnate him as my servant. If I miss this opportunity, who knows when I'll find a suitable servant next time. Rather than giving up early, it's better to let Konako try. Thinking for a moment, Rias decided to follow Konako's suggestion. Then I'll leave it to you, Konako. However, if he makes any unreasonable requests to you, just refuse him directly. Don't put too much pressure on yourself, understand? Reaching out and gently ruffling Konako's hair, Rias chuckled softly as she instructed. Understood. Konako slightly narrowed her eyes, showing an expression like a cat being scratched under the chin. But, if you really want to take him in as a servant, wouldn't it be better for Rias to make an appearance herself? Nanamiya-kun just said that as long as he can become your husband, he's willing to be reincarnated as your servant. Akeno next to her showed a hint of teasing. Being able to gain both a servant and a husband, such a win-win situation, it's truly enviable. If you're envious, why don't you go? Rias rolled her eyes at Akeno. Moreover, becoming her husband, without any background, he couldn't withstand the Phoenix family's retaliation. Thinking of the engagement she was burdened with, Rias couldn't help but sigh softly in her heart. Nanamiya-kun was talking about Rias's husband, not my husband, Akeno. How could I? Hiro, who had already walked far away, was completely unaware of the bickering between Rias and Akeno. Nanamiya-kun. Just as he walked out of the old school building's range, a rather servant voice reached Hiro's ears. Following the sound, Asuna, holding a small bag and standing timidly at the boundary between the old and new school buildings, immediately came into his view. What's going on? Raising an eyebrow, Hiro quickened his pace by a third and came to Asuna's side, asking with some confusion, Asuna, what are you doing here? Didn't I tell you not to wait for me? Although under her insistent request, Hiro had changed his address from Yuaki to Asuna, he wasn't sure how long it would take to enter the real devil's nest, so naturally, he wouldn't let Asuna wait for him. It's okay, I haven't been waiting for too long anyway. Walking on his right, Asuna smiled sweetly and explained softly, as if comforting him, actually, yesterday I told my father about this, and then for some reason, my father still didn't agree with mother's approach. He just told me to try to accompany you after school, as if he sees you as some kind of psychic. A psychic? If you really put it that way, it doesn't seem wrong? After hearing Asuna's explanation, Hiro nodded silently, pondering to himself, however, letting his daughter accompany a student of the same age, especially after experiencing such danger, is quite difficult to understand from a common-sense perspective. So, Yuaki Shaozu seems to really understand some of the inside information of the underworld? Then why is he using Asuna to make contact? Doesn't he have his own means in this regard? That place just now, was that the old school building of Kua Academy? Tomoko and the others said that it seems to be the activity room of the Occult Research Club. The current president is Rias Gremory-senpai, a very popular beautiful red-haired foreigner in Kua Academy. Did you join that club with Konako-chan, Nanamiya-kun? No, Konako-chan did want me to join, but I refused. Hiro looked at the curious girl beside him and shook his head. Why? The president and vice president are both very beautiful women. Why would Nanamiya-kun refuse? Shouldn't boys in their puberty be very interested in this kind of club? Girl, there are too many things wrong with that sentence, I don't even know where to start. Well, Rias-senpai and Akeno-senpai are both top-notch beauties, and their figures are also far more developed than their peers, but… Speaking to this point, Hiro deliberately paused for a moment, piquing the girl's curiosity. But, I've been seeing beauties of their level since I was a child. Thinking of his busted blonde mother, the expression on Hiro's face was slightly strange, long red straight hair, Rias, long black straight hair, Akeno, etc., long silver straight hair, Rasius, long blonde straight hair, mother, long white straight hair, Sana's peerage, the lineup for the 5-color ranger team is complete. Chapter 14-14, The Crisis of Universe Destruction. After reuniting with Asuna, the two walked side by side towards the school gate of Kua Academy. However, when Hiro and Asuna were still some distance away from the school gate, a brown-haired student ran past them, cursing under his breath. That old hag is so annoying. By now, Issei and the others should have already started, right? I missed the opening credits, damn it. That damn old hag. Hyudu Issei? I was just about to look for him, and he appeared right in front of me. What a coincidence. Noticing the foremark above the person's head, Hiro raised an eyebrow slightly. However, as the Red Dragon Emperor's host and one of the original protagonists of this mixed world, why does he only have a 4? Steal. Opportunity knocks. Before Hyudu Issei walked too far away, Hiro quickly shouted in his heart. Ding! The time required for this extraction is 1 minute. Do you wish to begin? Begin. Current task, observe Hyudu Issei's back for 1 second. Remaining time reduced by 1 minute. 1 minute, this Hyudu Issei is weak. While thinking this, the system task had already been completed unknowingly by Hiro. Ding! 4th tier luck extraction completed. Congratulations host for obtaining 1 random pet summoning card, this world limited. The lower limit of the summoned pet's strength is a mid-class devil, with no upper limit. Loyalty is automatically locked to the maximum value. This thing seems not very useful. Or very useful. However, for something that completely depends on luck, I really don't have much confidence. However, much to his surprise, in just over a second, Asuna on his right had already noticed where his gaze was fixed, looking at Hyudu Issei's back with some confusion and asking, Nanamiya-kun, is there something wrong with that person? Is he an acquaintance of yours? Since all the male uniforms of Kua Academy High School were of the same type and hadn't changed in recent years, Asuna couldn't tell whether Hyudu Issei was a first year, second year, or third year student just by looking at his appearance and clothing. Unless, she had the ability of absolute memory like Hiro. Acquaintance? No, I'm not servant with him at all, and I don't want to get involved with him in any way. Looking at Hyudu Issei's receding figure, a hint of disgust appeared in Hiro's eyes. He seriously instructed Asuna beside him, Asuna, you too, if you see that person, you must stay far away from him and don't get involved with him in any way. He's one of the 3 perverts of Kua Academy High School. Just hearing that nickname, you should be able to guess how terrible his personality is. The other 2 are the bald guy and the bespectacled guy who often walk with him. You'll see them sooner or later. One of the 3 perverts. Before Hyudu Issei's figure completely disappeared around the corner, Asuna gave him one last look, a very strange expression on her face. If his personality is so bad, why hasn't he been expelled by the school? Who knows? Maybe the student council members are more open-minded and think that the 3 of them haven't crossed the line yet, so they still have value to be saved. Hiro thought of the insider in the student council who had a good relationship with Hyudu Issei, clicked his tongue, and said casually. A look of understanding yet not quite understanding appeared on Asuna's face. She nodded and said nothing. Returning home, Hiro immediately locked himself in his room and took out a square, pure white small card from the system's item bar. Just as he was about to use it, he suddenly realized an important issue: the pet's lower limit is a mid-class devil, with no upper limit. Doesn't that mean that big shots like Off-Eyes, Great Red, Hormungandr, Tiamat, etc., are also possible? If that's really the case. Looking up at the white ceiling only about 3 meters above, Hiro silently stuffed the card back into the system's item bar. Anyway, things won't disappear if I leave them there. It would be really troublesome if the ceiling got a hole in it. Even though the Kirigaya residence now had a spare guest room besides the rooms used by him, Nanamiya Yasuko, and the mother-daughter pair Kirigaya, Yasuko might pull him to sleep together with her under the pretext of strengthening mother-son feelings. After all, even if there was no problem with the house, such precedents had already occurred more than once. After thinking for a while, Hiro changed into casual clothes, left his room, and planned to take a stroll in Saitama Prefecture at night. Aunt Kirigaya, I'm going out. You don't need to prepare dinner for me tonight. Sitting on the jenkin before the doorway, Hiro shouted towards the living room at the back. Okay, Hiro-kun, be careful when you go out at night. Don't go into those deserted alleys, understand? According to the news reports, just yesterday 2 people were killed and eaten alive by ghouls here. It's terrifying. I know. You don't know, I was actually at that scene yesterday. Muttering inwardly, the prepared hero stood up and opened the front door of the residence. Night fell, in the Saitama Prefecture near Tokyo, a warehouse district where almost no one would pass by. Hiro took out the random pet summoning card from the system space again, looked down at the white card in his palm, and silently muttered use. The moment the thought fell, the paper-like card instantly disappeared from his palm. Subsequently, a jet-black circular pattern, or rather a summoning array, with a diameter of 5 or 6 meters, quietly appeared on the concrete ground in front of him. A summoning array, such a cliché method, but looking at this scale, it doesn't seem like a small pet. Should I say I'm lucky? Or was my judgment accurate? Whoosh whoosh whoosh, a gale, centered on the summoning array in front of him, suddenly rose without any warning, causing Hiro, who was nearby, to instinctively squint his eyes. In less than 2 seconds, the howling gale abruptly stopped, and a huge figure about 8 meters tall, with 1 eye, 2 legs, and no arms, appeared in front of Hiro, causing his pupils to suddenly contract, his heart filled with shock. This, a heavy laser class beta. Good heavens, is this world really that difficult? So, am I here to be a savior? P.S. A normal laser class, right small, is 3 meters tall, 12 meters long, and 16 meters wide. A heavy laser class, judging by appearance, is about 8 meters tall. For those who haven't seen it, just think of Beta as Zerg, the kind of Zerg that has evolved for countless years and devoured countless galaxies in the Mahayana stage, perhaps even stronger. Chapter 15-15, Golden Darkness's attack. Thanks to his absolute memory, Hiro only needed to recall for a few seconds to find information in his mind about that very healing gourmet anime and the Beta, these minors, physiological needs, body composition, reproduction conditions, origin unknown, possesses tactical action capabilities, communication method speculated to be quantum brain, quantity. In the corners of his memory, he found a number he couldn't determine the truth of 10 to the power of 37th. And this, it seemed, was only the number of beta that had newly proliferated in the solar system after entering it, in locations like Mars, Neptune, Pluto, and the asteroid belt. Compared to the main force that might exist in other galaxies and star regions, it might just be a drop in the ocean. Not to mention, the beta that came to the original Works solar system were only of the minor profession, not warriors. The difference in combat power. No matter how he guessed, it would only ever be a guess, with no way to obtain any proof. System, since this beta's loyalty to me is at the maximum value, can it still contact or be contacted by its own kind? Negative. From the moment this summoned creature appeared, it has completely separated from the species it originally belonged to. It can be regarded as another species, another existence, with the same appearance and abilities. Phew! After hearing the system's explanation, the faint sense of unease in Hiro's heart finally disappeared. Even if Beta might appear in the solar system at some point in the future, at least, it wouldn't be because of his summoning this time. In any case, the reason for me to increase my strength now, besides surviving and protecting my family, also includes an additional task of saving the world. Looking at the behemoth several stories high in front of him, Hiro shook his head with a wry smile, his heart full of helplessness. What is all this? Sighing, Hiro stepped forward, just about to reach out and touch this heavy laser class beta to recall it into the system space, when the corner of his eye caught a glimpse of a golden figure rapidly flying towards his location. Judging from the reflected light, the person approaching clearly had a metal weapon like a knife or sword in their hand. Clang! Hiro's right hand Yutsufusa clashed with the attacker's golden blade, emitting a crisp sound. Finding no success with the first strike, the attacker didn't pursue but leaped backward, facing him from a distance of about 10 meters. Who are you? Looking at the attacker's face, Hiro frowned slightly, feeling a sense of déjà vu. Then, when his gaze fell upon the golden blades on the person's hands, a hint of realization flashed in his eyes. Yami? But why would she attack me for no reason? I haven't even made contact with any aliens. Thinking of this, he suddenly realized something, and the corner of his mouth twitched. I finally got a pet with great difficulty, and it hasn't even been used once, but trouble has already come knocking. Golden tendrils of hair on both sides of golden darkness solidified into two hiltless golden battle blades as she looked at him warily. Ear. She originally wanted to say Earthling, but that would be akin to revealing her alien identity. Realizing this, golden darkness quickly changed her address. Boy, why are you stopping me? That thing is the enemy of all living beings. We can't let it continue to exist. It must be eliminated as soon as possible. Judging from Yami's tone, she had already come into contact with the beta and understood some of their nature. Facing golden darkness's vigilance, Hiro, holding Yutsufusa's mind raced. After thinking for a few seconds, he shrugged and put on a helpless expression. I spent a lot of effort to finally get a pet that looks decent enough. How can I just let you kill it? Pet. Golden darkness deeply frowned, staring at the terrifying yet non-aggressive looking creature behind Hiro in silence for a moment, and then, from somewhere inside her black leather jacket, she took out something resembling a handheld computer or MP4 player. The camera on the back was facing Hiro, while the screen on the front was facing her. Boy, since you say that's your pet, can you guarantee your absolute control over it? Hiro only glanced at the device hidden in golden darkness's palm and could roughly guess its origin. However, he didn't show any unusual reaction because of this, maintaining his previous expression and saying lightly, I can guarantee it. After all, the system promised it. Have you seen any other kinds of that creature? How many? Where? No. By what means did you gain control over it? That's confidential. Looking at the indifferent-looking blonde girl not far away, Hiro felt speechless for a moment. I answered your questions earlier out of politeness, not because I owe you anything. I hope you understand that. As for this guy. Saying this, he patted backward with his free left hand. His palm collided with the heavy laser class beta's surface, making a sound like plastic cracking. Snap snap snap, I am very clear about its dangers. You don't need to remind me. If it poses any threat to my family, I will destroy it immediately. I don't need an outsider like you to interfere. Everything, is the truth? Looking at the screen that showed no prompts, golden darkness, despite her calm face, was full of doubts. How did a low-level civilization that hasn't even left its small star system cross so many light-years to capture a large radiant, different designation? And how did it snatch control from its superiors? Also, very clear about its dangers? How does he know? Other aliens who fled to this planet? I see, I understand your thoughts, boy. Giving the unchanged screen one last glance, Golden Darkness retracted the golden blades on her sides and put the MP4 back into her four-dimensional pocket. There's something I want to talk to you about. Seeing this, Hiro also retracted Yatsufusa in his right hand and then reached out to pat the surface of the behemoth behind him. Snap! He stored the several-story high heavy laser class Beta into the system space. Both sides had put away their weapons and combat stances, and the basis for peaceful conversation had been established. Chapter 16-16, the entire Devolukian royal family wiped out. More than 10 minutes later, in a coffee shop where only Hiro and Golden Darkness were present, the two sat facing each other. So, the infamous assassin in the universe Golden Darkness, what brings you to this remote planet? While the staff prepared their coffee and snacks in the back, Hiro looked at the expressionless blonde beauty in front of him and said lightly. Since he had already given Golden Darkness the impression that he knew a lot, he didn't mind making his image even more mysterious. Moreover, constantly concealing things might be noticed by the girl's unscientific sixth sense, and then, the conversation would end there. For Hiro, who desperately wanted to obtain information about the Beta, this was a situation that needed to be avoided at all costs. Mission. Opposite him, the girl only gave a light two-word answer. Mission? Yuaki Mikon is already Asuna's younger sister, and Yuaki Rito is even non-existent. What else could the mission be? After thinking for a moment, he tentatively asked, "Can you tell me the content of the mission?" Tisk. Just as expected, looking at the girl's face, which showed no intention of speaking, Hiro thought to himself, just as expected. After all, she was a professional assassin. One question each, it's your turn. The method you used to subdue that thing, is it difficult? Irreplicable. Staring at his brown eyes in silence for a few seconds, Golden Darkness maintained her usual cold expression and asked this. Hiro nodded without much hesitation, confirming her guess. That's right, even I myself don't understand the principle behind it. I just got the result of subduing it, and control is the same reason. Hearing his explanation, Golden Darkness frowned slightly, showing a thoughtful expression as she fell silent. Although the reason and process are completely unknown, the item given by Lala-sama has already confirmed that he wasn't lying. Excluding that one large radiant under human control, this star system and planet can be said to be a very safe environment, meeting the requirements of King Deviluk. If Lala-sama were to encounter this mysterious boy, perhaps the principle of controlling the devourer could be found. Moreover, it might even solve the fiancé problem that has been troubling her. The appearance of an earthling should be able to meet the aesthetic standards of the Devolukians. Thinking of this, Golden Darkness deeply scrutinized the boy's appearance opposite her a few times. Boy. Golden Darkness nodded towards Hiro, indicating it was his turn to ask a question. Regarding the information about the species that the large radiant belongs to, I hope you can tell me as much as possible. It might take a while. Hearing Golden Darkness's somewhat reluctant reply, Hiro smiled slightly. It's okay, I don't mind. Without any wind blowing, the golden hair hanging down on both sides of Eve, Golden Darkness's real name, which will be used from now on, moved a few times, indicating some fluctuation in her emotions. All right. Taking a few seconds to organize her general thoughts, Eve slowly began to speak. In the Milky Way galaxy, the common name for that species is devourers. The one you possess is a large radiant among the devourers. Because it possesses the attack speed of light and an attack range spanning planets, it generally appears in interstellar battlefields in space. At this moment, the coffee shop waiter came to the two of them with a tray, and Eve stopped her narration very timely. Your orders, please enjoy. After placing 2 cups of coffee and Yami's dessert, the waiter bowed slightly to the two of them and turned to leave. It's unclear when the devourer species appeared or where their home planet is. They approached the outer rim of the Milky Way more than 100 years ago and were completely annihilated by King Deviluk, the overlord of the Milky Way, leading his forces. King Deviluk more than 100 years ago? Hearing this, a slightly bewildered expression appeared on Hiro's face. In the original work, it was more than 10 years before the start of the story that Gid unified the galaxy and became the overlord. This world is more than 100 years ago? Butterfly effect, or has several decades or even centuries passed since the end of the original plot? More than 20 years ago. Wait. Please let me ask a question first. Although it was a bit impolite, Hiro decided to confirm the timeline first. If I remember correctly, the current King Deviluk's name should be Gid Lucificus Deviluk. So, what are his current family members? Besides King Deviluk himself, there are 4 others, the Queen Sefi Michaela Deviluk, the eldest daughter Lala, the second daughter Nana, and the third daughter Momo. Despite a flash of displeasure on her face, Eve honestly answered Hiro's question. Thankfully, there are slight changes, but the impact isn't significant. After hearing Eve's answer, Hiro secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Thank you, please continue. More than 20 years ago, the Devourers, who had once been annihilated, made a comeback. And this time, whether in terms of quantity, evolution speed, combat power, or tactics and strategy, they have improved countless times. 13 years ago, King Deviluk single-handedly destroyed the planet where the Devourer's main base was located, trading his exhausted power for 5 years of peace. 8 years ago, at the same location, the Devourer's main base completed its rebirth. As Eve continued her explanation, the expression on Hiro's face gradually became unsightly. Gid has become smaller, which is the same as in the original work, the Beta have returned, and it's possible that this time they are warriors instead of miners. The main base can regenerate after being blown up, probably because the Deviluk side has no ability to stop it. The current Milky Way can only barely stalemate with the Beta, and occasionally loses some star systems. Gid, as the overlord of the Milky Way, plans to use the home planet Deviluk as the last line of defense. What a nightmare start! They're already using the home planet as a defensive line. Is the entire Devilukian royal family going to be wiped out? Then, it's my turn. Ding, putting down the brown hot drink in her palm, Eve asked an irrelevant question. Boy, what's your name? Hiro. Are you a native of this planet? Yes. After settling the bill for two, Hiro walked out of the coffee shop but didn't see the golden figure of the girl. However, very quickly, he spotted that somewhat blurry golden figure in the night sky several hundred meters to his right front, and sighed inwardly. My life is so hard. Chapter 17-17, Forced Room Sharing. Mom, Aunt Midori, you go up first. I'll go find a tour guide to bring back. Glancing at the three women who had already entered the hotel ahead, Hiro's footsteps turned, and he quickly walked towards the blonde girl with a bewildered expression in the distance, as if not feeling the weight on his hands and shoulders. Behind him, Nanamiya Yasuko and the other two women turned around, their expressions different. A tour guide? Didn't we say we didn't need one before? Why waste the money? Nanamiya Yasuko muttered, looking at her child's gradually receding figure, but had no intention of stopping him. Forget it, Hiro has always been reliable in his work. He probably has his own ideas this time too. Let's not worry too much. Kirigaya Midori glanced in the direction Hiro was heading, at the blonde girl who looked like a nun, a mischievous smile flashing across her face. Hiro-kun has grown up, he already knows how to strike up conversations with girls. I just hope he's not like his unlucky father, who, at such a young age. Thinking of the man who had dated her older sister for more than a year and then died suddenly at lightning speed, Kirigaya Midori sighed inwardly and walked towards the hotel elevator entrance, holding Kirigaya Sugiha's hand with her right. Yasuko, let's go tidy up the rooms first. Let's leave the tour guide matter to Hiro. Oh, giving Hiro's back one last look, Nanamiya Yasuko followed after a few quick steps. Hello, excuse me for disturbing you. Carrying large and small bags of luggage, Hiro walked up to Asia and asked with a fluent English, chuckling softly. Asia, oblivious to her surroundings, didn't notice him until Hiro spoke. Turning her head, the first thing Asia saw wasn't a face, but the several bags of luggage weight that were even more conspicuous than Hiro. After finding the speaker, Asia looked at his Asian face, her tone slightly questioning. Foreigner, sir? Is there something you need from me? It's nothing major, I just wanted to ask you, could you temporarily act as our guide during my family's trip? In return, besides giving you some payment before we leave the UK, I will also cover your food and accommodation expenses for these few days. Do you think that's okay? Thanks to Hiro's English, which was so fluent it didn't sound like that of an Asian, Asia immediately understood his meaning. Please come and eat and drink for free for a few days, and we'll give you some payment at the end. Although for Asia, who had just been expelled from the church and was homeless, both food and accommodation and money were urgent problems to solve, due to her own personality, Asia did not agree to Hiro's proposal. No, just providing me with food and accommodation for these days is already very kind. There's no need to give me any more payment when you leave. Looking at the kind smile on Hiro's face, Asia waved her hands repeatedly with a somewhat flustered expression, her tone full of being overwhelmed by favor. Then we'll do as Miss Nun says. Hiro nodded and didn't continue to dwell on this issue with Asia. Since he had obtained Asia's consent, his original purpose had been achieved. As for the rest, there was still plenty of room for maneuver in the following days. Miss Nun, please come with me first. I'll take you to your accommodation for these few days. Okay. Leading the little nun into the high-end hotel, Hiro, burdened with luggage, walked to the front desk, intending to book a separate room for Asia, and then Excuse me, our hotel rooms are currently fully booked. Are there no single or multiple occupancy rooms left? Looking at the apologetic expression on the receptionist's face, Hiro was speechless for a moment. Yes. Such a coincidence, muttering to himself, he turned around and looked at the little nun whose face was flushed with a slight blush. I understand, Mr. Nanamiya. I wouldn't mind sharing a room with you, even. Before he could even speak, the little nun had already started talking to herself, and the color on her face became even redder. To be able to meet Mr. Nanamiya at this moment must be an arrangement by my lord. Even if this kind of thing makes me a little shy, I will try my best to overcome it. As she spoke, the little nun clenched her free right hand into a fist, making a gesture of encouragement. However, this action didn't quite match the shy expression on her face. No, because your lord has already kicked the bucket, so this definitely isn't your lord's arrangement. Muttering to himself, Hiro didn't speak, silently leading Asia towards the elevator. Have a pleasant stay. Behind them, the receptionist's voice sounded as if with a hint of a smile. Watching the figures of the man and woman disappear into the elevator, the receptionist shook her head and muttered to herself. Seriously, having such a good female companion, and still wanting to book 2 rooms? Don't they know what it means to seize the opportunity? I really don't understand what's going on in young people's minds these days. Going straight up to the 13th floor, Hiro led Asia, whose shyness hadn't completely faded, to the door of room 1305. Not long after pressing the doorbell to the right of the door, accompanied by the faint sound of thump 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 footsteps, Nanamiya Yasuko, who was also blonde like Asia but had a much better figure, opened the door. Hiro-kun, you're so slow. Looking at the belated hero, Nanamiya Yasuko pouted and complained softly. However, when she saw the blonde girl behind Hiro, her light red pupils instantly brightened. Is this child the tour guide you found? Good eye. Just as expected of my child. I have a feeling there's a hidden meaning in your words. Glancing at the excited look on his mother's face, Hiro silently walked past with his luggage. Asia, wait for me at the door for a moment, our room is next door. Okay. In less than a minute, Hiro, having put down the luggage of the 3 women, returned to the door, only to see his mother embracing Asia's slender waist like a hooligan, constantly muttering something. And Asia just kept blushing, not saying a word. Upon seeing his figure, she directly lowered her head, not daring to look him in the eye as if she had done something wrong. Mom, watch your image, you look like a little hoodlum right now. Rescuing Asia from his mother's clutches, Hiro carried his luggage in his right hand, took Asia's hand with his left, and walked towards the room next door. Fire! You can find 30 chapters ahead here. Support link, pat-rayon.com/redon1. Just remove the also other exciting fanfic available. Fire! More bonus chapters. Every 250 power stones equals bonus chapter. Give me more power stones. Chapter 18 to 18, Stand, the World. For the next 7-8 days, this will be your room and mine. Bang! Throwing the backpack in his hand onto the bed on the right, Hiro looked at the blonde girl behind him who had inexplicably fallen silent. Go to the bathroom when you change clothes, don't forget to close the door when you shower, go to the toilet, or self-generate electricity. In the coming days, if I happen to see something I shouldn't, don't blame me for not reminding you. Yes, I understand, Nanamiya-sama, but self-generate electricity? What is that? The little nun looked at him with a slightly puzzled expression and asked cautiously, Sama? Hearing those 2 Japanese words coming from Asia's mouth, and looking at her current submissive appearance, Hiro couldn't help but raise an eyebrow, a strange feeling he couldn't quite describe in his heart. In that short minute, what on earth did my old mother say to Asia? How does it feel like she suddenly regards herself as a servant? A subordinate? A wife? I haven't even done anything. Don't worry about that, just pretend it was a slip of the tongue. Oh, the little nun nodded as if she understood but didn't quite, temporarily suppressing her curiosity. Shaking his head to clear the chaotic thoughts from his mind, Hiro rummaged through his backpack for a change of clothes while asking Asia, who looked somewhat uneasy not far away, at this time, Asia, you probably haven't had dinner yet, have you? Yes. Hearing his question, Asia quickly put down the luggage in her hand and responded respectfully. Grumble, a very convincing sound confirmed the truth of Asia's words. Ugh! Clutching her small stomach with both hands, Asia let out a pitiful moan, utterly embarrassed. In front of her benefactor, she had shown such an embarrassing scene. Don't look over here, please don't look over here. Feeling the temperature on both cheeks gradually rising, Asia nervously stared at Hiro a few meters away, silently praying in her heart. However, the facts proved that Murphy's Law maintained its effectiveness even in a different world. Hiro's movements paused slightly, glancing at Asia's small abdomen, which her two hands couldn't completely cover. How long have you not eaten? Oh, only 1 day. Really? Looking at Asia's somewhat evasive gaze, Hero asked back with a playful expression. 2 days. REA. This time it's really true. If I hadn't eaten for 3 days, I definitely wouldn't be able to stand up now. Seeing that Hero still didn't believe her, Asia even subconsciously let go of her hands covering her stomach, explaining with flailing arms, not knowing what she was worried about. Grumble grumble ugh, not eating for 2 days and still being able to maintain such normal movements, should I say as expected of someone from the supernatural world? You haven't eaten for 2 days, you probably haven't showered either, right? Take a quick shower while there's still some time, and then come down for dinner with us. You'll start working tomorrow. Okay. Asia nodded and quickly grabbed a few pieces of clothing, jogging towards the bathroom. However, when she was near the corner, Asia suddenly stopped, turned around with a troubled expression, and looked at him, asking, Nanamiya-sama, would you like to join me? What on earth did my old mother say? After a moment of silence, Hero glared at Asia, deliberately putting on an impatient look. No need. Go quickly. Yes. Watching Asia disappear, the luck extraction Hero had been waiting for finally completed. Ding. 3rd tier luck extraction completed. Congratulations host for obtaining Stand the World. The World? DIO's ability? Listening to the system notification in his mind, Hero, lying on the soft sheets, raised an eyebrow, a hint of joy in his heart. Originally, relying solely on the acceleration of intrinsic time control and his physical abilities, he lacked a decisive trump card when facing sufficiently powerful enemies, such as upper-class devils, ultimate-class devils, or even Miss. But the world's time-stopping ability. Even if, like that pre-balance breaker vampire cross-dresser, the world's time stop couldn't affect enemies who were too strong, it could completely eliminate the possibility of him capsizing in a gutter. It can be considered a somewhat useful ability. Summoning the golden humanoid figure and observing it for a while, Hero murmured to himself. The next day, early morning. Please take care of us today, Miss Asia. Nanamiya Yasuko affectionately took Asia's arm, her face full of a bright smile. Yes, Aunt Yasuko. As if infected by Nanamiya Yasuko's smile, Asia also beamed. Asia and Nanamiya Yasuko walked in front, while Kirigaya Midori subtly lagged a few steps, quietly coming to Hero's side and asking in a low voice, Hero, how far have you progressed with that girl? Did anything happen yesterday? No. Rolling his eyes, Hero's tone was full of helplessness. I was wondering why Yasuko and Midori's attitudes towards Asia were so strange. So, they've been treating her like a daughter-in-law, niece-in-law? I just went to find a tour guide, how did they imagine it to that extent? Even if I have other purposes, I haven't shown them yet, okay? Why? Doesn't that child fit your taste? Or do you not like foreigners? In front, Nanamiya Yasuko and the little nun Asia were chatting happily, while behind, Hero was receiving his aunt's soul-searching questions. This in front of us is the legendary tombstone of King Arthur. Although its authenticity is difficult to verify, the majority of people, including the British public, have always believed so. He doesn't look like anything special. King Arthur? Who's that? The voices of Kirigaya Midori and Sugihara sounded one after another. Meanwhile, Hero, walking at the back of the group, frowned slightly while looking at the empty surroundings. King Arthur's tombstone should logically be a popular tourist attraction, so why is it so deserted? Even if there aren't any tourists occasionally, there should at least be some management personnel or vendors, right? Just as he was pondering, the corner of his eye suddenly caught a deep light that abruptly appeared at the end of his line of sight. P.S. After being reincarnated as a devil, one inherently possesses language proficiency, which is a setting from the original work. But why could Asia speak fluent Japanese before being reincarnated as a devil? Therefore, please don't consider details like language. Fire you can find 30 chapters ahead here support link, pat-rayon.com/redon1 just remove the also other exciting fanfic available fire more bonus chapters. Every 250 power stones equals bonus chapter give me more power stones chapter 19 to 19, slaying the stray devil after the light disappeared, a huge, grotesque figure appeared in Hero's vision. Its upper body was a naked male torso, while its lower body was a spider-like form with more than a dozen abdominal legs. It was somewhat like the stray devil that had appeared in the original work, except for the slight difference in gender. It's already a stray devil, yet it still opens a barrier and drives away bystanders. Glancing at his oblivious mother and Kirigaya Midori and the others in front, Hero frowned deeply, vaguely sensing that something was wrong, as if It had been deliberately arranged by someone. Taking Yutsufusa from the system space and holding it in his right hand, Hiro took a few steps, blocking the path between the stray devil and the four women. Mom, Aunt Midori, something's coming. Sugiha, you'd better not look. What follows might be a bit bloody, not suitable for children. What happened? And the reactions of Kirigaya Midori and the others were as he expected. Not only did they not do as he said immediately, but they also looked in his direction with curiosity, taking in the grotesque figure into their view. Wow, what is that? It looks so disgusting. Kirigaya Sugiha's eyes were full of disgust and revulsion, and of course, there was also a lot of fear in them. Nanamiya Yasuko forced herself to remain calm, looking at her son in front of her who seemed to know something. Hiro-kun, what is that thing? Its scientific name is a devil, its type is a stray devil among devils. To put it simply, it's a monster that has lost its sanity, similar to a ghoul that eats people. Whoosh, casually swinging the katana in his right hand twice, Hiro replied to his mother blandly, walking towards the grotesque figure. Behind him, Nanamiya Yasuko reached out her right hand towards him, opening her mouth as if wanting to say something. However, in the end, she couldn't utter any words. Asia, you guys stay here and don't run around. Leave the rest to me. Okay. Asia, having had similar experiences, quickly realized the current situation and nodded in agreement. Watching her own child walk forward to face the grotesque monster, while she as a mother could only stand behind and silently watch everything unfold, Nanamiya Yasuko's eyes couldn't help but dim. Asia-chan, what exactly is going on now? Is that really a devil? And what about the sword in Hiro's hand? Why does he look so calm? As a mother, how much do I really know about my own child? Nanamiya-sama is right, that is indeed a stray devil, but, the scientific name and ghoul are things I'm not very clear about. Unaware of the disappointment in Nanamiya Yasuko's tone beside her, Asia looked at Hiro's gradually receding figure and explained softly, Nanamiya-sama must have had similar encounters before, which is why he can be so calm. The sword in his hand should be a sacred gear or something similar, just like my twilight healing, a blessed existence favored by God. Saying this, Asia reached out her left hand towards Nanamiya Yasuko, and with a faint emerald, green glow, a silver-white ring quietly appeared on her middle finger. However, I, in my current state, no longer have the qualifications to continue being favored by God, do I? Amidst the surprised and astonished gazes of Nanamiya Yasuko and Kirigaya Midori, Asia felt a secret sadness in her heart. In other words, Hiro, he is, a psychic. A psychic. Hearing Kirigaya Midori's surprised tone, Asia looked at her, tilted her head, pondered for a moment, and replied not very confidently, probably. Die. 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 If I kill all of you, I can gain that lord's favor and return to the ranks of devils. Still dozens of meters away, the stray devil's frantic roar had already reached Hiro's ears. Fortunately, at this distance, Nanamiya Yasuko, Kirigaya Midori and the other ordinary people behind him probably couldn't hear the devil's voice. As expected, this guy was arranged by someone. Such a thought flashed through his mind as he silently watched the devil lower its human upper body and open its mouth wide towards his position, as if wanting to spit something out. Intrinsic time control, 5 times speed silently activated, and everything in Hiro's vision became incredibly slow. In the next second, a large mass of milky white unidentified substance spewed out of the devil's mouth, crashing towards Hiro with a whoosh sound. Having calculated that this attack wouldn't affect Nanamiya Yasuko and the others behind him, Hiro in his 5 times speed state calmly and easily bypassed the mass of unidentified substance. A clump of spider silk? Should I say it's an attack method befitting its species? He even took the time to glance at the clump as he passed by. Thump! The milky white clump of spider silk slammed onto the grass, making a dull sound. No matter if you're a sacred gear user, an exorcist, a magic exterminator, or whatever. Just hurry up and die. Seeing that its attack had missed, the stray devil's emotions became even more violent. Transparent saliva dripped from both its spider mouth below and its human mouth above, causing Hiro, who noticed this, to frown. The distance of dozens of meters flashed by, and the charging stray devil, now 2 or 3 meters in front of Hiro, had a fanatical look on its face, eagerly raising its 2 spider legs high and fiercely stabbing down at Hiro. Die! At this distance, Hiro could even clearly see every hair on those 2 spiders' legs, and dodging these 2 simple and direct attacks was even easier. Hiro's right hand Yutsufusa cut through the stray devil's left 4 spider legs as if slicing through paper. Weak as hell, but its voice is loud enough. Ah! The pain of having 4 spider legs severed simultaneously transmitted to its brain, causing the stray devil to wail instantly. Didn't that lord say these were just ordinary people? The human who instantly severed my 4 legs, is an ordinary person? Why did such a strong sacred gear user suddenly appear? I could have joined the current moose family if I killed them, but why did it turn out like this? Damn it! Losing its balance, the stray devil fell sideways to the ground, sliding forward while scraping the ground, leaving a 7 or 8 meter long dirt-colored trail before barely stopping. After stopping, the stray devil immediately turned its head, but didn't continue to attack him. Wait! This lord, I'm willing. However, Hiro didn't even have the thought of listening. While stepping over the devil, Yutsufusa sliced across the human neck of the devil's upper body. If it weren't for the insufficient height and his wariness of the hidden mastermind, this stray devil wouldn't even have had a chance to beg for mercy. Ding! System energy loading progress reached 60%, system map activated. The system map will display obtainable luck within a 3-kilometer radius centered on the host. Did it just finish loading at this moment, or did killing this stray devil increase it a little? With the corner of his eye watching the newly appeared module on the system panel, Hiro raised an eyebrow, inconspicuously glancing at the grotesque devil at his feet. P.S. Kirito knew the truth at the age of 10, Sugiha was 9 at that time, 4 years older than now, so it's normal for her to be slightly more mature, right? Fire you can find 30 chapters ahead here. Support link, pat-rayon.com/redon1. Just remove the also other exciting fanfic available. Fire more bonus chapters. Every 250 power stones equals bonus chapter. Give me more power stones. Chapter 20-20, I'm coming clean, I'm a psychic. Confirming the demise of the stray devil, Hiro recalled the 8-bladed sword into his system space and approached Asia and the others, whose expressions varied, in the distance. To the left front, a little over a kilometer away, was a 4th-tier individual. To the right, 3 kilometers away, a 6th-tier individual had just appeared. Which of these two was the controller behind this stray devil? With a sidelong glance at the scene displayed on the system map, Hiro pondered inwardly. The 4th-tier one remained stationary, while the 6th-tier one was heading directly towards his location. If it was the mastermind, they were being far too impatient. Although there was no concrete evidence, based on this point, he felt the 4th-tier individual was more likely the one pulling the strings. Nanamiya-sama is so amazing. You defeated such a powerful devil with just 2 strikes. Looking at Hiro Nanamiya approaching, a faint look of admiration appeared on Asia's face. Unii-chan is so cool. Can you teach Sugiha that kind of thing from earlier? Kirigaya Sugiha hopped over to Hiro's side and affectionately linked her arm with his, her face full of excitement and elation. This was the opposite of the fear and apprehension most girls showed after encountering a monster. It was unclear whether this was due to her inherent personality or because of the psychic hero being by her side. Teach? This kind of thing can't be taught. Looking at Kirigaya Sugiha beside him, Hiro gave a doting smile and shook his head. Without the awkward period that started at age 10 in the original story, the relationship between Kirigaya Sugiha and Hiro Nanamiya was far closer than that of the original siblings. However, watching Kirigaya Sugiha's affection for him increase day by day, Hiro couldn't help but feel a little worried. Beside Asia, Nanamiya Yasuko stared at Hiro's right hand, which had held the sword earlier, her expression slightly complicated. Hiro, that just now, when did you get such an ability? Why didn't you tell Mom? You might not believe it if I told you, but I haven't had this ability for very long either. Looking at the complicated expression on his mother's face, Hiro muttered inwardly. We can explain the rest slowly later. For now, let's leave this place first. The others naturally had no objections to his proposal. Kirigaya Midori pulled her daughter, who was clinging to Hiro, away, and the group of 5 hurriedly walked back along the path they had come from. However, they hadn't walked far when Kirigaya Midori, holding her daughter's hand, couldn't suppress her curiosity any longer. She looked over, a hint of excitement on her face. Hiro, are you the kind of psychic that often appears in novels and on TV? That samurai sword that suddenly disappeared and reappeared just now, is that your ability? Space manipulation? Teleportation? Or the ability to create and summon weapons? Turning his head, Hiro looked at Kirigaya Midori's mature face, on which a rare look of excitement and curiosity had surfaced. He felt somewhat speechless. So, Sugiha's mom is this kind of character? How did I not notice before? Although there are some differences, there's nothing wrong with considering me a psychic. As for what my ability is, it's just like what Aunt Midori thinks, the ability to summon that sword from somewhere else. While keeping an eye on the movements of the 6th-tier individual on the system map, Hiro answered Kirigaya Midori's curiosity. He wasn't stupid enough to tell the ordinary people around him about such a crucial thing as the system. Otherwise, it would not only bring trouble to himself but also potentially endanger ordinary people like Kirigaya Midori, Nanamiya Yasuko, and Kirigaya Sugiha. Hostages, coercion, and threats were common tactics in any era and any country. Even among humans, there was the saying those who are not of our kind must have different intentions, let alone towards non-human species like devils, fallen angels, gods, and Buddhas. Is that really how it is? Fortunately, a hint of excitement appeared on Kirigaya Midori's face, as if she had obtained a novel toy. She didn't question his explanation.